license to do your own thing if you wanted to. If you want to make the sky darker, or if you want to make a sunset, or however you want to be creative. If you want to make your Santa just like grotesquely obese or thin as a beanpole, I mean, that's totally up to you. But I'm going to draw step by step. We're going to draw through the trees first, and then we're going to do the Santa together, and then we're going to get to painting. This is actually a relatively easy composition. Last week we had some challenges. We were doing some washes with watering down our acrylic paints to the point where they're almost watercolors and layering them up. We don't have that challenge today, luckily. So this is kind of, I put it in an easy category for this painting today. I'm going to put this one aside. And so to get started today, all we need is a pencil and a blank canvas. Hopefully everybody's got a blank 16 by 20. If you don't have a 16 by 20, my phone is pinging somewhere and I have no idea where it is. Hopefully it's not somebody struggling to get in this party. So I'm going to check that, or I'm going to have Annie check that real quick. Oh, Pam is getting in right now. We'll give Pam a second. So you're going to need a pencil and a canvas to get started. Hopefully everybody's got a canvas. If you don't have a canvas, a piece of paper will work too. I had, last week I had a grandfather join me, and he painted the entire thing on just a regular piece of paper, and it turned out fantastic. So maybe you don't need a canvas after all. I prefer the regular canvases that's like not paneled canvases, just because they dry faster, although panels are easier to draw on because you don't have to worry about stretching it when you push. Now I'm going to do a little test to see if I can even see my pencil. And no, I can't. Okay, so I'm going to be drawing with a Sharpie today. And you could too if you want to draw with Sharpie. There's nothing against it if you're feeling confident in yourself to go ahead and go straight to Sharpie. There are benefits to Sharpie as opposed to using pencil. You don't have to worry about your pencil line smudging and your paint like picking up any of that pencil and getting gray and dirty. Also, it's really permanent and creates like a more cartoony vibe to it. So mine's gonna look maybe a little more illustrative than yours that are drawing it with a pencil. But I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So in fact, I'm gonna switch cameras so I can get a little closer up so we can start drawing together. So we're just gonna jump right into it today and start with our drawing. How many more bodies we need? 2, 3, 1? One more? Hey, fantastic. Is that the one that we thought was gonna be tardy, ladies? Is that, or is our person that we thought was gonna be tardy already here? I'm calling out.
No, Caitlin's still struggling to get on.
Caitlin, does she need a Zoom link? Does she need something?
She's got it. She just logged on to the wrong Zoom. So
all right.
Hopefully she'll be here in a minute.
She'll be here. All right. So she'll catch up.
She couldn't find the paintbrushes I bought her, so.
I got you. All right, so I'm going to mute everybody to start off with. If you want to chime in, feel free to chime in at any time. I'm just muting everybody so we don't get an echo and so we don't get any crazy background noises while I'm talking. But feel free to unmute yourself and chime in and ask a question or anything. Or if you got any comments, and just to say, hey, mine's looking like crap all of a sudden, what's going on? Just let me know, and I'll be happy to help you out. So to get started today, look, you can't even see that. I really put a nice dark pencil line right there, and you cannot see it at all. So I'm going to switch cameras. I'm going to swap over here. If at any time I forget to switch cameras and you want to see the close-up, just let me know. Say, hey, get your face off the camera. I want to see the painting. It's awfully dark. Why is it so dark? You saw how bright it was in here a second ago. It's not that dark in here. So we're going to get started. We're going to start with a horizon line. This horizon line, however, is not going straight across our canvas. This is what's helping it. Ooh, this is going to be tough with a Sharpie because I don't want to go right through the middle of Santa's body. So for you guys with a pencil, you can go straight across your canvas, but I got to be careful to not accidentally go through Santa. Maybe I will draw with a pencil because I don't think this is going to work very well with a Sharpie at all. All right, I take that back. I'm going to go as dark as I can with this pencil so you guys can see, but I need to be able to erase. So I'm doing my horizon line kind of at an angle. That creates a little bit of whimsy going through the composition. I may went a little high. Maybe you want to start about the middle and bring it down instead so you don't end up too high, but it'll all work out in the end. So I'm going just a little lower on the left-hand side, a little higher on the right-hand side. And you can actually see that on the other camera. So you know what? I guess the pencil wasn't that bad of a decision after all. So really, really, really basic house. I mean, like the houses that we used to draw in first grade. So we're about 2/3 across our composition, and that's where our house is going to be. And our house is, say, about 3-4 inches wide. And we're just going to draw it in there very lightly where our house is going to be. Very typical house with an angled roof at the top. Again, like how we used to draw in first grade, right? Ooh, this pencil, however, is very, very smudgy. I've got tons of pencil already on my hand. Left-handed problems, am I right? Am I right, Sarah? Left-handed problems.
Definitely right.
We got another little section of building coming off. I mean, Santa has a very modest home. It's not a very big home. It's a little cabin. You know, his workshop is the grand corporate factory that's down the block a little bit. But this is just the small little cabin where he resides. And we're going to draw it very simply. We're going to have a rectangle window in the middle of it, a vertical rectangle. And I'm going to put a little crisscross in there for a window pane. It doesn't have to be perfect. Yes, it does. No, it doesn't. It does not have to be perfect. And then just a couple squiggles for some bushes. So he's got a little bush here in the front, a little bush here on the side, maybe a little bush over here in front of the side part of his house. And there is Santa's beautiful house. Piece of cake, right? Then we're going to have a path to kind of create some dimension. Did I hear somebody say something? Yeah?
I'm so sorry. So
Yeah, go ahead. What's up?
My sister who can't, she said she's trying to get on, but she can't, so she emailed you.
Okay, let's take care of that right now. I have
so
everything open. I got all my screens. I got all my windows. Let's find this sister of yours. So what is your sister's name? Caitlin, you said?
Yep, Caitlin Mariama.
All right, Caitlin. Oh, somebody else didn't get a Zoom invite either.
That was me.
Nancy, you did get in. Okay, cool. But let's get that link to Caitlin. Duplicate this tab. Just pardon the interruption for just a second, folks. Sorry about this, but I want everybody to be able to participate. So I got this link right here. Let's copy this, copy, and reply to Caitlin that says, link please. All she said was link please. I want to participate. All right, here we go. Caitlin sent. All right, tell Caitlin to be on the lookout for that email back to her. So in the meantime, I'm sure you guys caught up to where I'm at with the Santa's house on the hill here. Boy, my house ended up so high. Did yours end up as high as mine? I almost want to start over again. My house ended up too high. How high are your guys' houses? Are they as high as mine? No? Yes?
They're so high they're in Colorado.
Oh, they're so high there in Colorado. But all right. Well, I wanted to have some extra room here for the smoke to come up and out. But I guess in mine's going to veer more to the left. You can see in my example painting, I had quite a bit more room for my chimney of smoke to come up. But will it really make a difference in the end? Probably not too much. So let's go ahead and make that chimney. Again, just a real simple chimney, coming up kind of narrowing at the top, and then a little rectangle at the top like that. And then very, very, very lightly, we're going to kind of put in where our smoke is going to go. Very lightly. We want to barely be able to see it. If you don't see it on the camera, I'm sorry, but that's how light I want it to be. I want it to be barely visible. Yeah, you can't see it at all on mine. But there's a little stream of smoke coming right up here, just a little outline of where I want it to be. And I'm going to do it with a very light color, so I don't want my pencil to show. So I'm going to do that very lightly.
Hold on. No, I didn't. Okay.
Most of the rest should be pretty forgiving as far as if you mess up any pencil lines or how hard you have to draw, because we're drawing nice, bright, bold colors on top of it. For the trees, I am actually just going to draw where my tree trunks are going to go. So I'm just counting on my left-hand side. I got 6 or 7 trees. They're all going to be varying heights and distances away from where I'm at. So 6 or 7 trees there. And then maybe 3 trees on the right-hand side. So 1, 2, 3. There's my 3 trees on the right-hand side. Just a straight vertical line. We're going to do all the rest of it with our brush, so we're not going to worry too much about where those trees are going to go. If you see me looking down to the side, oh, you can't even see me at all anyway. I got another computer down on my side with the gallery view of all you guys, so I can actually see what's going on. Make sure you're all on track and not sweating bullets and falling behind. Boy, I hate it when that happens. Did we get Caitlin yet? Is she coming? No? Who's talking to her? Who's texting her?
So I
Yeah.
asked about it, but I haven't gotten a response yet, so I think she's trying.
She's trying. Okay, cool. I hope so. Hope she gets in. All right, so the real thing that creates the perspective here in the drawing is this path that starts from the bottom here, goes off the right-hand side, and then curls back into the canvas. So I'm gonna, into the composition. I'm gonna show you on this real quick first so you can kind of see it done. So you can see how just the right-hand side of that, that path kind of gets clipped off, and then it goes really, really kind of skinny back to the house. So there's the path we're making right now. I'm going to start it from the bottom. I'm going to go off the right-hand side, and then I'm going to go towards that house. And then nice and wide on the bottom. We want it to be almost wider than the width of the house. So like 4 inches or 5 inches wide at the bottom. And then it's slowly going to get narrower and skinnier as you get to the house. I'm going to touch mine up just a little bit. And there's our path. And that really is what creates that perspective, that forced perspective that Santa's going back towards his house in the distance, and then he's in the foreground. And then we've got another layer of background of trees and another layer of background of sky. So it really has a nice, as simple and easy as a composition it is, it really has a nice sense of depth to it.
Oh, washing machine.
Awesome sauce. We got any questions over there?
Mom, you have to move.
I'm going to go ahead and mute you again, Jennifer. Sorry about that. A little echoey. It's echoey, and then I think there's ghosts standing behind me or something. All right, so the hard part, Santa. Who's ready for Santa? You guys all ready? No. I get a half a glass of wine in first before we get ready for Santa, right? Absolutely. All right. Well, here goes nothing, okay? We're going to start with his body shape, which is really up to you how chubby you want to make this guy. And he's going to end up actually pretty big right here because he's actually in the foreground where he's standing. So here's my main shape for Santa. Avocado shaped. It's about the size and the shape of an avocado. So if you have an avocado, you can always trace the avocado. Otherwise, you're going to have to do your best. Close your eyes, picture yourself at the grocery store, picking up an avocado, and then draw that. He's going to have very, very simple features. It's a good thing he's walking away from us. We don't have to draw his eyes, his nose, his mouth, his beard, his nothing, right? So it's going to be a piece of cake. So next thing we're going to draw is just the top of his jacket. Just that little white part where the top of his jacket is. The separation between his body and his head. On top of that, we're going to draw his floppy hat. I think we all know how to draw floppy hats. I'm going to do 2 lines going up at an angle. And the one on the right-hand side is going up a little higher than the one on the left. And then I'm just going to flop it over that direction with 2 angled lines. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom to kind of mimic that same flop. And then up to you how big you want to make the poof ball in the end. I'm going to make my poof ball, I think, a little smaller today. I think my poof ball on my example is a little too big. Who's got my example printed out? Did anybody print out my example?
Could you zoom it in just a little bit?
Zoom it in. I could try. I could do my best. Woohoo! Look at that. You can see it now.
Yay.
All right, hey, that'll work, right?
Yeah.
Dan,
Awesome. Yeah, what's up?
so on the painted picture, the hat is kind of like more in the trees instead of on the horizon with the.
You know, I did mention in the very beginning, you're very right, you're very correct, that my horizon line is a little too high. And in the example, his hat did end up quite a bit more into the trees. But you can see the difference already between mine and the example, how much higher my horizon line is.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, I can adjust that if that makes you feel better. There you go. And there's going to be a big hill.
Okay.
Well, that's where the horizon line was meant to be. And you can see he's actually kind of where he's supposed to be if I drew my horizon line where I meant to put it.
Okay.
So I'm sorry you got to do some eyeballing, and I apologize for my very first mistake there of drawing my horizon line too high.
Oh, no, that's okay.
No, it wasn't a mistake. It was a happy accident, right?
Right, that's right.
I meant for that to happen. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna put my hill down on the other side so it matches that hill on this side. There you go. I fixed it. This one's gonna be the hilly version. All right, let's continue on with Santa. We're gonna do the bottom hem of his coat now. And look at that! Automatically, that avocado has just become Santa. Isn't that amazing? I'm gonna draw another little belt line here, where his belt's gonna go. It's not squeezing him too tight though. That's his black belt line. If you want to bulge it out a little bit there, you can. Make it seem like it's pinching his waistline just a smidgen. Then he's got that big sack behind his back, or really, it could just be loose. Try not to draw it to be a perfect oval or perfect circle. The more organic and shaky you kind of make that shape, the more bag-like it's going to be. And then just a little zigzag for the top of that bag. The other little detail of it, the little rope coming down, that's going to be done with paint as I think our very, very final step. So an hour and 45 minutes from now, we'll be drawing the final touch on that sack. On the left-hand side, we can see a little bit of his arm coming down. Now we gotta kind of think of where his proportions, really we got cartoony proportions happening right here. But if you put your arms down at your sides, you kind of feel where your hands are gonna go. They hit about mid-thigh level. So, but his coat is kind of long. That coat covers his thigh. So his hand should come to about the bottom of his coat here. So that, and I'm just do a little, like a half oval shape there to show where his arm is going to be. And then I'll just I'm not worrying about drawing fingers and all that whatnot. I'm just doing a little curved line at the end. I think there is a little tiny white piece showing in between. But I got white gloves on my picture, so you really can't tell in my example. But there is a little bit of like a white section there before his glove. You can have artistic license and give him different color glove. You can give him green gloves if you want to. And then he's going to have really short, stocky legs. So almost lining up with the bottom. See how his bottom of the avocado is poking out? That's how I'm going to determine where his legs are going to go. His legs are going to be really short and fat. Something like that. And again, with a cuff on his pants. And then most of his boots are kind of buried in the snow. So if you want to draw like a little line where his foot's going through the snow. And then we got 4 or 5 really kind of wonky looking ovals of where he put holes in the snow, where he was walking, where he was trudging through the snow. I hope that wasn't too fast. I was trying to go slow, but I see a lot of scrambling. How you guys doing? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Let me know. Thumbs ups? Mostly thumbs up. Say, that's good. I see Pam's got a few pieces of art in her background there. You've done these before, huh? So next, we're gonna imagine the light kind of coming from the left-hand side. And the way I picture the scene is that it is dawn, so the shadows are really, really long. So the shadow coming from Santa over here is gonna be like a really wide, long shadow. And it's gonna be longer than his body length is tall. So if you're gonna take his body length and put it on the side there, we want just like a hair longer than that. And we're gonna we don't have to worry too much about what that shadow looks like. I mean, as long as it looks somewhat like a person, but because of the way the bulges and the snow work, it's really not gonna end up perfectly looking like a person anyway. And it's mostly gonna be done kind of impressionistically when we paint it in. So we're not really worried about too much details when we're putting in that shadow. But hopefully you guys are looking good. Hopefully we're somewhere near the same stage. If you want to, I'd love to see what everybody's doing. If you want to hold it up, I'd love to see. If I could see anyway. Depends on how high res your cameras are. Oh, that Santa's plump. You got some nice portly Santas. I like them. Looking good, guys. Looking good. So this is it for the drawing. This is all we're drawing here today. Everything else is going to be done with paint. So if you want to take the time to pull out your brushes, pull out your paints, I always make sure I have some other necessary supplies that you'll probably find around your house. which are paper towels. Make sure you got a paper towel. I always keep a paper towel in my opposite hand that I'm painting with because the paper towel is essentially your eraser. A moist, clean paper towel. If you mess up a brush stroke real quick, you can grab it before it dries and it erases it completely from your canvas.
And
Yes?
so Caitlin still can't get on. You said you were recording it. Would she be able to watch it later?
Absolutely. I'm sending you guys all the link to the recording in your email probably by the end of the weekend. And it's a private link, so I ask that you don't share it with everybody, but it's for your personal use. And yeah, you paid money for the class, so you're more than welcome to watch it after the
All
fact.
right. Thank you.
Or if you want to take your time, or if I'm going too fast, or God forbid your internet cuts out like right now and you miss it, yeah, that's what it's for. That's what that recording is for.
Thank you.
After a few months, I'll make those recordings open to the public so anybody can see them. And hopefully that'll boost my search engine optimization value on my website by having people go there and then click on my website and all sorts of fancy marketing jargon. But let's get started painting. I'm ready. Hopefully everyone's got some kind of palette to use. I'm going to start off with my fancy artist palette like this, but a plastic plate is perfectly acceptable. Or I've got the cheapy Hobby Lobby kind. These are usually about $1 a piece. I think you can buy a 10-pack for like $6.99, I want to say, at Hobby Lobby. Or Amazon. Amazon, you could probably get them for about 50 cents a piece if you buy about 50 of them, which I do. So, but you know, if you were with me at the last class, that I'm going to probably use all of these palettes because I just like making a mess when I'm mixing colors. I like mixing colors nice and thin. That way, I end up taking up more real estate on my palettes, but by painting my mixed colors nice and thin, I can change those colors really easily. If you have a big glob of a color, you can't easily change that color. For example, if you wanted to make a brown out of red and green, and you had a huge lopping pile of red right here, and you start trying to feed green in there, man, it's gonna take you all day before that starts turning brown. But if you had a nice thin coat of red, and you put a little tiny bit of green in there at a time, you'll notice how fast it turns brown to the color that you want it to, and it's just so much easier to mix that way. So other than a paper towel, I also have my cups of water. You want to start with a wet brush. Today I've got the following. I've got a nice big wide brush, a nice big wide flat brush to fill in my background mostly and my foreground. There's lots of big areas we have to paint in today. Then one about half that size. And then a pointed brush of your choice. I like this one that's got a bigger barrel to it just because it holds more paint and I could use it for a longer time. And it still comes to that little teeny tiny point that I'm looking for. So before I talk your ear off, because I probably can with a painting lesson all night, I moisten my brush first and I'm going to start painting. So I get it wet in the water, dry it off my paper towel, make sure it comes to a nice point. And believe it or not, this is the same brush I was using last class, guys. Remember I said this was used 4 or 5 times already before, and look at that, it's still good. This is a $2 brush, so don't overpay for your brushes. That's not necessary. It's a myth. I'm going to start off with our sky color. We always work background to foreground. So I'm going to start with some white, and I have 2 different blues. I don't know how many blues you guys got, but I got a purplish kind of blue, which is an ultramarine blue, and a phthalo blue. That's PHTH, which is just impossible to pronounce without a lisp. Phthalo blue, which is more of a greenish blue, more of a turquoise. But I like them both, and I'm probably going to use them both in my sky. If you only have one blue, I suggest you have like a little bit of red by the wayside to purple up your blue, and maybe a little bit of green by the side to maybe green up that blue a little bit. So I'm going to add a little bit of red, a little bit of green to my palette too. Plus, we're going to use those colors later on anyway. But I try not to overdo it. I try not to put more than, I don't know, if you're going to measure it out, a half a teaspoon in each tray, 10 milliliters. Not too much. I don't like to overdo it. So as I said before, our light is coming from the left-hand side. It's coming from this side. So I want my sky ever so slightly lighter on that side. I didn't really concentrate on that when I was making my, my previous version. But I'm going to today. I'm going to have just a little bit more warmth, a little bit more light in the sky, and a little darker as we go across. So to start off, I'm just going to take a little bit of white and a tiny bit of blue, and I want my more purplish blue in this case. So I'm using my ultramarine blue. And just for the sakes of argument, it's really kind of hard to tell on camera. but I'm gonna show you two different blues. So I got a spare brush here, and I just wanna show you the difference between my two blues. So here's my ultramarine blue, which actually looks a lot greener on camera, but then you can see my phthalo blue is even more blue-green than that one. So this has got quite a bit of purplish tinge to it, and this one's got a little bit of more of a greener tinge to it. But they both have about the same opacity. So either one will work for this project. Okay, so I got a little bit of white and mostly blue, but that white in there just lightens up just a hair. And I'm gonna start laying that on the left-hand side of my canvas. And I'm coming down to about where I want my tree line to end up. And I'm using all sorts of different strokes. I'm using back and forth strokes, left and right, kind of going, it's what's called scuttling in painting. And it's kind of just going, or willy-nilly. You can call it willy-nilly or scuttling. Both are acceptable. And it's really just means going around every which direction with your brush. And that just helps blend the paint in and just kind of work the paint into the little tiny creases that are in the canvas, in the fabric of the canvas. I'm gonna switch cameras again so you can see what I'm doing here. Oh, that color is so much more accurate. Yay. All right, so that shows you a much more real representation of what color I'm actually putting on my canvas there. It's more of a purplish blue. So we got full attendance today then, huh? Minus the one person that's gonna watch later, right? Minus Caitlin? That is fantastic. Good news. So I'm gonna work myself across and I am dodging my smoke. So as soon as I start getting to that smoke, which is right here, the edge of my smoke, I'm kind of dodging that area. I'm gonna leave that area for later. I am gonna put some color on it. It's not gonna stay white, but I'm just dodging it to start off with. Now, as my brush starts running out of paint, and you can see it's running out right now, that is what I'm gonna use to kind of start shading in the edges of my smoke, but only until your brush starts running out of paint. Wait until you start feeling that dry, brushy feel. And you can see how light it got. I didn't add any more white to my brush as I was doing that. I just naturally started running out of paint. And that's what I'm using. I'm using that dry brush to start creating like a little shadow around where my smoke is coming out of my chimney. Where Mrs. Claus has got the fire ready and a nice warm blanket ready for Santa Claus when he comes home after his hard night's work. So let's get that there. So I kind of like that. Now I'm gonna go back. Now I'm gonna go back and get some more darker color back on my brush and do another layer on my background. I'm actually adding just a touch of red to my blue, just to darken it a bit. If your blue is a blue-green blue and you add a touch of red, it's gonna make it incredibly darker with just a tap of it. So that's what I did. I used both of my blues, a little bit of each, and then I tapped my red just to make a nice dark, deep blue. And now I'm gonna start from my right-hand side and work to the left. That is nice and dark. That is a beautiful color. And blues, man, blues always look better with other blues. There's something about it. I mean, if you could picture Manet in your head. I don't know if you can picture a Manet composition. Who could picture a Manet composition in their head? Anybody in the audience? Fantastic. We got one person that'll know what I'm talking about then. But he's got these beautiful blues and blue greens in the water when he paints. He's painted many impressionist compositions of people on boats. And the water in every single one of them is just amazing, just amazing. When he puts all those different blues next to each other, there's nothing more blue than when you get a bunch of blues together. Then it really makes your senses. I think that's kind of why I like the Starry Night too. A lot of the copies that you see of the Starry Night are very faded copies and copies of copies, and it doesn't capture his true hues that he used when he made that. I went and saw a show at the Art Institute. God, it must have been 15 years ago now. And I got to see some of those true colors in his paintings. Unlike what you see in the art history books, man, oh man, they still look like they were painted yesterday. I swear. These are 100-year-old paintings. And because they were so thick and vibrant, rich with color, they're just so beautiful. I don't believe the Starry Night was at that exhibit, though, when I saw it. I don't think it was. I remember seeing the sunflowers. And I think I would remember seeing the Starry Night if I saw it in person. I don't think it was there at that exhibit. Either that or, you know, I am getting old. I could have just forgotten. So I'm filling in all my sky all the way up to my house. I'm kind of dodging the area of where I started filling in that that lighter dry brushed blue, and kind of leaving that as my smoke. Now that I have my darker blue on my brush here. And it really isn't like navy blue. I mean, it's almost like a royal blue, I would call it. But it's working pretty well for me. I'm gonna try to blend that in with my existing color that I started with on my left-hand side there. And that was just my straight ultramarine from the tube. But again, if you didn't have two different blues like I did to use, you could always dab a little bit of green to create like a phthalo blue or a more turquoise blue like I have on the right-hand side. So I dipped in a little bit of green and I dip in a little bit of red to create that darker blue. And then on the left, I just used my straight ultramarine from the tube. And you can see how much more see-through that paint ended up being, especially up close. But now I'm going to try to blend the two. And if your paints are drying just as fast as mine, which they probably are, most of you guys are in Illinois, and weather is pretty dry. Well, not at the moment. Actually, it's raining cats and dogs at the moment. But inside my house is still very dry. I could use a humidifier. But if you want to, my paint's already dry is the point that I'm trying to make. My paints are already dry over here on my canvas. I can touch them and nothing's coming off my finger. So I'm going to use just a tiny bit of water with my paint to help maybe try to bring those paints back to life. But they might be dry all the way already. That's why I said if you wanted to erase something, you got to have that wet paper towel on the ready. Otherwise, that paint dries too fast and there's no way to really erase it off of there. So I'm going back to my ultramarine, which is my purplish blue, and using some of that. Just a dab of white, which is how I started. And I'm going to use that color to finish blending my sky together here. So just a little tiny hint of warmth coming from the east over here. I had to think for a moment what direction the sun rises. It's getting late. Boy, it was a long week. Was it a long week for anybody else, or was it just me? Boy, yeah, I got one hand raised. Nobody else had a long week? Boy, oh boy, that was a bear. I'm a web designer during the day. I love to paint at night, but during the day I gotta make money somehow, right? Boy, oh boy, the websites, the quote unquote emergency after emergency this week. Ugh. But don't get me started. It's the weekend. Let's have some fun, relax, paint. I kind of like my gradient. How's your gradient coming across? Is it looking good, guys? Are you wrapping it up? Are you just starting? Give me a thumbs up if you're starting to wrap it up. If you feel like you can do it in about 5 more minutes. Nobody's giving me a thumbs up. Okay, so I'll give you a few. Oh, there's a couple thumbs. Cool. So I'm going to give you about 5 more minutes to finish this step. I'm going to overdo it. I'm going to overwork mine. I'm going to say what I'm doing while I'm doing it. But I'm probably going to complicate things way too much. So you guys finish up your skies. I'm going to get really super technical with how I'm painting this smoke. Your smoke does not have to be as detailed as mine. We could probably get away with having the smoke look the way it is right now. But I'm going to put a few more details into it and see how it turns out. Cool? Cool. And I'm going to go back to this view just for a second so you guys can see what I'm doing on my palette and whatnot. Let me know if I'm ever being too quiet or too loud. I'm always feeling like I'm one or the other. I know when I was watching the recording, every time I turned my head this way, like you couldn't hear me at all. So I'll just let me know if I get too quiet or too loud. So the smoke, let's do it. I'm gonna water down all these existing colors. So I've got very little color here left. It looks like I got a lot on camera, but really, like I said, this is a very thin layer. So if I take some water to this, a little bit of water. I'm just thinning that out a little bit. So it's my existing colors there. And I need to, there's my paper towel. I'm gonna wipe off almost all the paint. So I'm gonna go immediately to a dry brush technique and kind of fill in some more of this, this edges of the smoke. So I got a really, really light dry brush blue on there. And this is probably the most technical part of the painting actually, is this cloud. because to create the fades that we need to really kind of make it look smoky, you're going to need to use a little bit of technique. And that technique today is going to be dry brushing. So we're going to do some dry brushing. If you were with me last week, we did a little bit of dry brushing on something. What did we dry brush last week? I recall we did something dry brushed. I'm like looking at this example from last week. I'm trying to figure it out. What did we dry brush on there? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm thinking of a different painting class. Do you guys remember dry brushing last week at all?
No,
No? I must have imagined it.
but I was also behind.
I do paint my sleep sometimes, so, you know, I could have just been dreaming it. Yeah, because we were using a lot of washes last week and less dry brushing. So I guess dry brushing is another way to shade. I mean, you could use a wash and kind of achieve the same result. I don't know. I feel like dry brushing works better with smoke just because of the nature of the element, because it is air and not liquid. That makes more sense in my mind to use a dry brush technique and not a watery technique. So we use a watery technique, it'll make the smoke look watery, and that's not at all what we're trying to get. So again, I'm just using my dry brush and blending it in and just going back and forth. I still haven't touched my paint again yet, so I'm really just blending in what I got there. And as I push a little bit harder my brush, I squeeze a little bit more paint off of there, and that helps that dry brush shade, essentially, onto my canvas. I'm going to add a little more color on top of this a little later, but I want to have this first kind of shaded base of where that smoke is coming out. And it kind of dissipates as it goes away, so I don't want so much over here on the left-hand side showing. And I'm actually dipping into my paint again. So I'm going to cover up a little bit here on the left-hand side. I don't need that much smoke. There we are. About right? Still need to blend more? Maybe a little bit more. What's great is I can look over here at the camera and get kind of a far away view from it without taking a step back up from it. It's a nice little trick. I guess you guys could do the same. Just hold up your painting and look at the thumbnail of yourself in Zoom, and you can get a sense of what it looks like from far away without having to take a step back. How great is that? All right, so that's about where I want it to be, faded in. I like it. I'm gonna zoom into my painting again so you can see it close up. And, whoops, that just stopped the video altogether. That's not what I wanted to do. And there we go. So, there we are, all close up. I'm gonna give you another couple of minutes to finish that up before I move on to the trees. Trees are gonna be super easy though. Again, this is funny how usually the sky is the first easiest step, and in this painting, it's the first most difficult step of the painting. It's gonna be all downhill from here, which is great if you're having wine while you're painting too. Any questions so far? Can I help anybody? I'm usually walking around the room helping people, and I can't do that in these online parties. So can I help anybody? Does anybody have any questions? You can always put them in chat too. If you don't want to talk out loud, you can always chat me in the thing over here. Julie, what's up? Go ahead, unmute yourself. What's up?
My outline of the smoke is just too there's not enough wispiness, and I don't know. Should I put white in?
Hold that a little closer. Let me see. I really like where it's at. What part? The bottom? The bottom left. Looks like there's a little too crisp of a line here.
Yeah.
I would just keep dry brushing. Just use that dry brush and keep blending that in until it kind of blends in. Because even that far left part of the smoke can really blend in with the sky more anyway.
Okay.
Cool, cool. Well, I like that I can see Yelena's progress. That's nice. I'll use Yelena as a guide then to see where we can go on to the next step. Looking good, guys. Looking good. There we go. Voila. So we're gonna add more colors to the top of that. So if you feel like it's a little unfinished, it's gonna feel like that because we're not finished yet. Paintings all, in fact, that one that we did last week, which is this right over here, if you can see it. Oh, you can see it out of the corner of the camera over here. It's this, the gnomes. So yeah, the gnomes that we did last week, they really did not look done until we finished the final step. Like the whole way through, even after I've already painted it twice, I was like, this really feels unfinished. And it's not until you put those final touches, those last couple highlights, those last couple dark spots, those final details really make such a huge difference when you're putting together a composition. Oh, there's Yelena's. If you want to peek at that one, there's Yelena's from last week. She did a fantastic job. I'm so happy to see that, Yelena, because I know you had. I watched the video afterwards, and I saw that you had cut out the whole thing. I don't know if you used a razor blade, but you had that thing cut out so flawlessly. It was unbelievable. And then you held it up for 20 seconds, and it like broke my heart. I was like, no. But you fought through it, and you triumphed in the end, and that's what really matters. That composition turned out fantastic, so you didn't even need that stencil after all. Yeah, she didn't realize we were transferring. You know, and be very, very careful with my instructions and my verbiage from now on, because it's not her fault. It was just the way that I worded it. You could interpret it that way, that you could trace it by cutting it out. But we just colored the back of it with a pencil and then traced it with a ballpoint pen, and it just transfers it onto the canvas. So that was my fault, Yelena. I'm sorry. She went through a lot of work cutting that damn thing out. It was really detailed too. All right, I still see a lot of brushes flailing, but I'm gonna have to move on to the next step just for the sake of time. I know you guys probably want to get out of here by 9 o'clock tonight. I did the same thing that I did last week. I had the meeting stretched to 9:30 in Zoom, so if you can hang out and we run late, hopefully you can hang out till 9:30. If it's past your bedtime, I understand. Again, that's why I have that recording. If we go long, you'd always go back and look at the recording. But I'm gonna stick it out until the end with you guys. If you want to go late, I'll stick it out to the very end. Boy, this brush is getting really crusty down at the bottom, but the bristles are still nice, so I'm not getting rid of it yet. All right, so we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to some trees. Who's treed before? Anybody make some trees before? Nobody. Nobody's made any trees before? Oh, come on, you guys were with me last week. You made trees. Haha. You can't lie to me. You know how to paint trees. So very, very similar. In fact, easier than the way we painted them last week, because they're almost flat the way we're painting them this week. They're almost completely one color trees on our canvases. So I personally, and those of you that were with me last week know that I don't like using black in my canvases. In my example, it looks very much so that I used black, but I did not use black. I mixed my darkest dark using the colors that are on my palette. So currently on my palette, I have dark, ooh, I almost knocked over my water. I have dark blue and red, and those together almost go black just by themselves, because I have this bluish green blue, the Prussian blue. But if you have to, you can add green to your blue to make it a little more green. But you can see this is a nice rich dark blue. If I add red to that, boy, oh boy, that is really close to black. Really close. So I'm just gonna keep adding that darkest dark. Now, if your colors are not doing that the same as mine, and this is one of the struggles of being online, is I can't provide you with the exact same brands of paint that I have, so your colors are not gonna match exactly. It might be more of a challenge to make that color that I made it. So if you're struggling and you're mixing your red and your blue together and you're saying, hey, that makes purple, Dan, that doesn't make any sense. Well, again, that's because my blue is more of a blue-green, so it's already got some yellow in it. So it's really the three primaries together that are mixing together to make the darkest dark. Alternatively, if your red is not making your blue into a dark color, use brown and blue. Brown and blue together will ultimately lead to a dark dark. But again, like my tip that I told you earlier, to use a small amount first and then slowly add the other color to it to get where you need to be, so you don't end up making way too much of what you need. And now to start off, I've got way too small of a pile, which is the opposite problem. So my pile is not gonna last very long, but it's very, we're making very typical trees. They're gonna come to a point at the top, kind of like a triangular shape. Last week, my trees had a little bit more character. You can see the branches kind of broke up a little bit. These were kind of make a solid shape. So I'm gonna start at the top, try to make a nice triangle at the top, overlap where my blue is, so I don't have a big gap between So I'm just gonna pop where all my tops are gonna be first, so I kind of have a guide of where all my trees are. So here's a tree, this tree's bigger, this tree's smaller, this tree's bigger, and that one's about the same size. There we go. So there's all the tree tops. Whoops, I missed one. I missed this guy right here. So I'm just using my big brush, and because, like I said, it was a golden tack-line that comes to a nice tip, I can make a nice, quick, wispy stroke and have it come to a point. And so I put the arrow points on the top of all my trees. And now I'm just going to essentially fill in underneath them. Nothing really super technical about this step. This is a lot of just filling in. So however you feel comfortable filling it in, it might even take 2 coats, because you can see when I lay this on that it doesn't completely cover the, well, especially on this camera, holy moly. That's not what it looks like in real life. That is really dark in real life. And I'm going to switch cameras in a second. You'll know what I'm talking about. But you can see that darkest dark is still very see-through. So we might want to take a second to let that dry. And the thinner you make a coat, the faster it'll dry. And I'd rather you try to put on 2 thin coats than 1 real heavy, thick coat. A really heavy, thick coat's just going to take too long to dry, and it's not going to look nice. So 2 thinner coats to create that same effect. And I'm kind of going around my house. I'm dodging my house, not because, I mean, the house is still going to be dark, like the trees that are next to it, but the very top lip of my house, I'm going to have like a mound of snow. So I definitely don't want to get any dark on the points that I want white on my house. So I'm going to try to dodge those. And I ran out of dark really fast. So I'm going to try to dodge those areas and preserve those white spots, those snowy white spots that are on the top of the roof. And just for the sake of argument, let's pretend for a second that I didn't have that phthalo blue, and all I had was ultramarine and brown. So, however, if you don't have brown, we can always figure out how to make brown too. So, I got my other brush here, standby. This brush I don't like. This is just a brush I use for mixing. The bristles are just too short. I hate brushes with short bristles. I need them to just be a little longer than that. So my ultramarine blue, this is more of the purpley blue, and if I were to mix this with red, it would just turn into more purple. So I'm going to use my brown instead, and essentially that gets me almost to the exact same spot. You can see that that's almost the same color as this. It's a nice dark. This one's a little more brown. I'm going to add a little more blue to it. But it's almost the same color. In fact, I'm going to use some of that color just to kind of prove my point. I'm going to use that same color over here with my other darkest dark that I already made. And you can see that it's a very similar color. So really quickly, I'm just filling in this area with these trees. Kind of think about the direction that the branches are growing. So they're coming from the middle of the stem and growing outwards as I'm painting. So I guess I am kind of thinking a little bit more than just filling it in, personally. There we can see just a little bit of texture of tree in there. It doesn't look completely flat. No, I'm gonna switch back to my other brush. I'm gonna watch out for Santa too. I'm gonna try to dodge him because I really want that red to super pop in the end. So I'm gonna try to dodge Santa as best as I can. This brush I got here is horrible. I hope none of you guys ended up with horrible brushes like the one I'm using right now, because this is, I don't know why. I think I'm a glutton for punishment. I like using. Oh, remember I wanted my hill to go down here. So mine's gonna go down here. Yours might not do this. But remember I drew my horizon line too high. So this is gonna be more tree down here for me. They do on the other side? Yeah, I'm gonna do it on the other side too. I'm gonna put it over here. So it looks like his house is on a hill on mine. You don't have to do that. Personally, I want to do it just so it's different than my previous version. So I don't have with 2 copies of the exact same painting. So you can see that this is see-through in a bunch of different places. But after I'm done outlining the Santa a little bit, most of this other stuff that I already painted in will be dry. And I will go back and throw another layer really quick on top of it. I gotta stop making the habit of saying really quick to everything. It annoys my wife too. I say, do this real quick, do that real quick. What is everything really quick to you? Everything doesn't have to be done really quick. Take your time. This is supposed to be relaxing. Relax. There's no timeline. There's no deadline. If you don't get finished by the end, I'm going to send you a copy of the video. So don't rush. So there's even less, one of the benefits of the online class is even less of a rush than a normal paint party. You don't feel the obligation of having to finish by the end. You can take
I was up to 1:30.
You were not.
I was.
Oh, man.
I didn't want to quit until I was done. So I was up very late, but it was great. I liked it.
You enjoyed yourself until 1:30.
I'm not complaining.
Cool.
I mean, a little bit because it was late, but I made my own choice.
I mean, honestly, this example that I did, I took my time and painted. The one that I did during class, I feel like I could probably put another, probably 2 hours into it. Just to add some extra details. Now, see, I made the mistake, this thing that I told you guys not to do. Did you see what I did? Everybody see what I did? Who sees what I did? The mistake I made. Pop quiz. Who sees it? Go ahead. Unmute yourself. Let me know. What did I do?
You do something to Santa?
No?
No.
I left a white gap right here between my tree and my sky. I wanted my trees to come all the way up to my sky. I did not want to leave that white gap there. So I need to bring up my trees just a little bit more. So I need to make it a little bit more dark on my palette here. I find adding just a touch of water, not to water down the paint, but just to increase the fluidity of it, just because it's so dry in here, just to increase the viscosity so it feels like you're not, otherwise it like constantly feels like you're dry brushing, even though you're not. Just like the paint just evaporates almost instantaneously off your brush. What's up? You got some questions? You got any questions? Who's got a question? Yelena, you got a question? She does. She just can't reach her computer to unmute herself. That's all. Here, I'll unmute. I think I can unmute you for you. Hold on. Can I? Am I allowed to do that? You can do that, right, as co-host? Just hit the mute button over there. I'll mute her for a second so she can talk. Well, I can't hear what you're saying, Elena. I wish I was better at reading lips. That would really help for this. Hold on. I'm going to figure out, Yelena. I'm going to figure out how to unmute you. Just give me a second. I know there's a way to do it. Where are you? Here you are on my list. I can only ask to unmute. I can't just unmute you. Oh, come on. What a bummer. Yeah, I can't automatically unmute you, Yelena. You have to do it yourself. Can I unmute everybody at once? Does anybody know how to use Zoom here? I'd like to know what you're asking, Yelena. Can you unmute yourself?
Am I good now?
There you are.
Can you
Hey.
hear me now?
Yeah. Hey, what's up?
It's too low, my Santa, I think.
Your Santa's too low, so your horizon's too high. Can you do the same thing that I did? Can you maybe push your tree line down a little bit? Just add some more.
But it's gonna be fine? It's gonna look good or no?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay.
I would just push that,
low.
because that's what I did too. I had my horizon line a little too high at first, so I just kind of I just created a hill. I just pushed it down a little bit lower to where I wanted.
Okay.
Because your Santa looks like he's in the right position. It's your trees that need to be brought down.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but I don't know.
Gotta go a little higher with my trees here. That was my mistake there. Let's get these trees in here. And now you can see how that second layer is really covering. I'm going to go with my other camera so you can see my true color too. It's coming out way blue in this camera. Let's go over here. Let's see if it's more like real life. There we are. Oh, wow. What a difference. And this is the lower quality camera. Man, oh man. I tell you, I'm never going to upgrade again. So the lower quality camera shows my color quite a bit better. This is definitely more accurate to what it is in real life. So you can see my second layer is going on and it's almost black. It's dang near black. It's like a navy as navy blue has ever been. And I'm just kind of filling in all the rest that I didn't, oh, those dang white gaps that I got here. Look at these white gaps. There we go. Need to make my trees a little wider, not so narrow. There Going around the house, going around the top of the bush. All right, and now we're all pros at making this darkest dark, right? So we're gonna have to make it a couple more times. By the end of the class, you'll definitely be a pro at making this dark navy. Filling this in, sculling around. If you feel like you need to switch to a smaller brush, please do. I'm totally used to working with my little, my 1-inch brush here. This is my preferred, well, it's like red sitting on there. What the heck happened there? A glob of red like stuck in there. I'm gonna fix it. Fix it there. There we go. But if you feel like you need to switch to a smaller brush, feel free, please do. We're gonna switch to a smaller brush in a second to paint in our house. So we end up with some little wood panels on there. We're gonna create some texture on our house. Some horizontal wood panels. So I think I'm happy with the trees. I might want to touch it up later when I'm all the way done, but I think I'm ready to move from my trees to my house. I'll do it a little bit darker right in here, because it didn't have the 2 layers because I had just covered that spot up. So there's my second layer on those spots. I think 2 layers on the whole thing should be good, should be sufficient. If you killed it in 1 layer, if your paints were opaque enough and you killed it in 1 layer, more power to you. But my paints, I'm still using the economy paints. As much of an artist as I am, when I paint fast compositions, I don't want to be using the most expensive paints I can find. I like using my economy brand paints. After all, if it comes out horrible, I don't want it to be, you know, worth $50 worth of paint and then have to paint over it. That would just be a sin. So I got economy brand. Oh wow, talk much. Economy brand paints. It did not come off my tongue nicely. It's because I was going to try to work Dick Blick into it. Dick Blick is the brand paints that I'm using. I recommend Liquitex actually as my brand of choice, but Blick has a nice cheap economy brand. And I paint a lot of paintings, as you can tell by the background, so I need to be buying in bulk. But you'll find that there's a vast array of differences between the opacity between different brands. Sarah, I wanted to ask you how those treated you last week, because you were using Artist Lofts, and I know Artist Lofts were known to be kind of meh. So.
Oh, I didn't have any issues.
You didn't notice any of them being like jelly feeling or the wrong translucency?
I mean, the only other times I paint are with you, so it's been a while since I last painted.
Well, good. Well, if you didn't notice, then I guess that brand is maybe more reliable than I thought. But I have used it in the past, and they could have improved over the years.
Yeah, I'm not a paint snob. It's just that was when I went to the store, that was the only full set that was available.
Cool. That'll work. Hey, if you're not noticing anything weird happening with them, you'll notice when you get bad paint. You'll be like, what? This is going on weird. Or it's not mixing right. Like you go to mix blue and yellow together and it's not making green, or at least not a green you recognize. Like a weird, ugly green. Like that's not right. Yeah, you'll notice when you get a bad paint. So maybe Artist Loft just earned a couple more points from me. I'm noticing my example, especially in the digital example, that my trees have much more whimsy to them. So if you want to get them a little more crazy and not make them straight up and down and have them kind of swaying in the breeze a little bit more, it's fine and dandy. They don't have to be as perfect. In fact, I think mine are too straight up and down. And I've had that problem before.
Sorry, guys.
When drawing nature, that you really got to have some things going this way and that to make it look more natural. So I'm going to jump over to my house in just a second. I wanted to note that I always keep 2 cups of water too. One of my cups of water I clean my brushes with, and the other cup of water I keep as clean water for when I need to add water to a color, and I don't want to dirty my color. Well, my water is getting dirty already. Let's crank out this next step. Let's crank out this this house real quick. It shouldn't be too tough. We've all painted houses before, right? No. You know, I lied. The house is not the next step. I'm looking at my previous steps, my last example. And we're going to do the ground actually first. Should we? No, I might change my mind. You know, I did the ground first, then maybe we will do the house. I kind of wanted to put the light behind there first. Yeah, okay. I decided. You guys ready to move on to the next step? Yes, give me some thumbs up if you're ready. Awesome, cool. I'm gonna get a nice clean brush, nice clean water, nice clean paper towel, because this next step, I wanna have a nice clean, very, very bright yellow. So I need the tiniest smidgen of yellow. And I'm talking about tiny, like really small. So like a little tiny ding of yellow. And then you can see I'm already on my next palette. Yeah, use too many palettes. And then quite a bit of white. I'll probably go back to that other palette. One of my other little secret tricks is my all bottle that I've had for 20 some odd years. Been filled with water so many times, it actually doesn't smell like all anymore. Like it smelled like all for a good 18 of those 20 years. But this is great for when your paints are drying up too fast, just to give them a quick mist so they don't die on you. So mostly white and a tiny touch of yellow, just the tiniest touch so you can barely see that yellow being mixed in there. So it's mostly white with the tiniest bit of yellow in it. And I am just going to create a glow around my window here. Just a little glow. And I also want to use that glowy yellow color just to accentuate the top of these bushes here are going to have some of this nice bright white yellow. So when it comes to the time where we're preserving those whites, they already have that glow that's coming from the window on them. So a couple random brush strokes of that bright white, whitish yellow on the top of your snow piles, on the top of your bushes, and on your house. I gotta take my glasses off. They're sliding off my face and they're annoying the heck out of me. So it's not that I don't want to see you guys. I can still see you guys perfectly clear. I'm nearsighted, so I don't need my glasses at all right now. They're serving no purpose except for just making me annoyed. So you can't see that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. What's up?
Zoom closer because
I was just gonna say you guys can't see that at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, there it is, a little closer for you. You can barely see that yellow white that I put on there, but I want to have a bright white inside that window when I'm done, and I don't want to have any blank canvas at the very end. So I want to have that little bit of glow of yellow in there, and I use that same glow of yellow on the top of this bush on the right, this bush in the middle, and a little bit on this bush on the left. Just the tiniest amount. Maybe I'll drag a little bit down my sidewalk here, just from the start.
Where did those bushes get there?
Did I scribble them in too fast? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Scribble them in. If you don't have any bushes there, you can just put the tops of those bushes in now with your white, and then we can kind of make them more bush-like later when we go throw in that house. So leave that, if you can, leave that nice white brush available. If you don't have another brush available, rinse it back off and follow along with me. I'm gonna do my little road now. So I'm gonna go back to that darkest dark that I had for my trees. Ooh, see now this is being really weird. You guys can't see that. Look at this, gross. So my paint half dried, and then I went to go use it, and now it's coming off in like pieces. So that's when you do one of these. There we go. We don't need any dry chunks of paint messing with our day here. You can see them on their little dry pieces of paint. It's amazing how fast acrylics dry. It really is. If you really want to experience slow drying times, there is medium that you can add to your acrylic paint to make it dry slower, like oil paints do. And I tell you what, it's a completely, if you're used to doing it this way, or if you've done a couple of different paint parties, the feeling of oil paints or acrylic paints with some slow drying medium, and it is completely different than painting them with this. The way you layer, the way you can work colors together, it all feels so incredibly different with a different kind of paint. So if you get a chance and you want to be more experimental, try some oil paints or try some of that extender medium for acrylic paints, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So I'm grabbing, if all my brushes don't end up falling on the floor, where did my other brush go? Ah, there it is. I'm grabbing my half-size flat brush that I showed you in the beginning class. So it's not my as wide, but it's still flat. And that's what I'm going to use to do the dark color on my house, because it's about the same width as one of those boards going horizontally across. So I'm going to make my darkest dark again for the umpteenth time. Adding some red to my blue. If it doesn't seem dark enough, add some brown to your blue. How you guys doing so far? Good? Bad? Ugly? Well, they all kind of look half finished right now, right? We'll get past the awkward stage, don't worry. So I got my darkest dark mixed again. I'm going to start at the bottom with this color and work my way up for the road. Then I said we're going to do the house next, and I misspoke because we're going to do the road first. So I'm still hanging on to that half wide brush, but I do want my wide brush for this part, otherwise I'm going to be here all day. So I'm going to use my nice wide brush to fill in this road here. And at the end of my stroke, I'm kind of just going to lift off and let it kind of disappear. Kind of the same way we did our dry brushing for our clouds, that we're going to paint in the bottom of this road here. And then as you start running out of paint, start lifting that up towards the house more. And let it run out of paint. And then kind of swoop it towards the house there for the part of the road that's closest to Santa's home. There you go. Does that look like a road? I tell you what, it's a little difficult to paint on an angle. If you really want to challenge, stand like next to your painting and paint like this. I gotta give Bob Ross some points, because it's not easy. It's not that easy. So our ground, if I had to have one critique of my previous painting, it would be that my ground ended up way too light. So my ground's definitely gonna end up a lot bluer this time around. And I think we're gonna do the ground next, because this yellow is not dry yet. And it's probably not dry on yours yet, so we're not ready to do our house. So before we take our halfway break, we are going to paint our ground. And then after we paint that ground, it's gonna be a halfway. We're gonna take about a 5-minute break, get up, stretch, get something to drink, refill your wine glass, do whatever you need to do. And then we'll take a break at about, I'm guessing, at this moment, I'm guessing it's about 8:25 is where our break is gonna be. So we're gonna paint for about 10-15 more minutes. Then we're gonna take a break right after we do our grounds. We're gonna do our main ground. We want a nice wide brush for that. I'm gonna give you a couple seconds to wrap up your road and your trees. Who is still working on trees? Raise your hand. Cool. Who's still working on the road? Raise your hand. Who's working on something completely else that I didn't say? Sweet. Good. We're staying on track. That's pretty awesome. It's difficult to do online, virtually. I need a beverage. Getting dry here. So if you guys want to see any of the paintings that are behind me, feel free to shout out, and I'll bring one closer to the camera. Or if you wanted to make your own private events, I'll be happy to paint whatever you wanted with you. If you want to get a party together of 10 or a dozen people, we can make a private event just for you. And I'd love to paint whatever you want to paint. I mean, that's kind of what I do. I want to paint for everybody. I want to have art for all is my goal. Art for all is my catchphrase. So whatever strikes your fancy, if you want to let me know. Even if you don't want to arrange your own private party to do it, you can even just recommend painting to me. Doesn't have to be now. You can even do it on my website. And let me know what you'd like to paint in the future, and I'll try to work it into my schedule. I'll do my best. So we got a lot of ground. It seems kind of daunting, but the ground is easy, probably the easiest part of the painting. I gotta stop saying easy because it might not be easy for some people. I think personally it's the easiest part of the painting is to paint the ground. We're gonna use light blue. We don't want it to be the same blue, exact blue as the sky. So we're gonna purposely try to mix a different blue. So I'm going to not use my two blues arbitrarily like I was doing in my sky. I'm gonna purposely try to get, I'm looking at my reference photo over here on the other screen, as well as my other reference photo over here. So I'm gonna try to mix that nice light blue that I see in my digital version, which is really like my phthalo blue mixed with white from what I can see. Whoops, I just touched my green a whole lot. Whoops, I did that last week too. Get that green out of here. So I'm pretty close to it already, actually. Just eyeballing it. Wow, is that drying fast? Holy moly. So that's pretty close. I mean, it's similar to a sky blue. It's almost like a summery sky blue to start off with. And that's going to be my main base coat. If you want yours to be a little bit more brighter, a little more daytime, feel free. If you want yours to be a little more darker, a little more sleepy, go for it. But that's the color I'm looking for in mine. I'm going to go for like a sky blue. And I'm really going to quickly try to cover this whole thing. Some nice big bold strokes back and forth. And I'm kind of concentrating on going back and forth, left to right, because doing so kind of creates almost like natural mounds, hills and valleys in the snow without even trying. So I'm arbitrarily filling this bad boy in. I'm dodging my shadow, but I don't need to, because we're going to go over that with a darker color in just a second. But I do want to see where my pencil lines are. And I'm going to switch back to that other camera so you can see what I'm doing. There you go. So you can see that you can paint on top of the shadow if you want to, as long as you don't disappear those lines on yourself. So you can still see where your shadow is going to have to go when you paint it in. But I'm going to fill in this whole thing. I just ran out of color already. It's a big area to paint in. You got to mix quite a bit. So I'm going to mix a little bit more. A little more white, a little more phthalo blue. I like phthalo blue. I don't know what makes it phthalo blue. I should probably find out. What makes phthalo blue phthalo blue? What are they putting in there? Why don't you look that up for me? All right. I gotta paint the bottom of this over here, so I gotta move like where it is on my panel. I gotta pick this up for a second. Juggling things here. Gotta hit this bottom edge. See, when I'm on the lip, of my canvas, or when I'm on the lip of my easel covers up that bottom 1/8 of an inch, so I gotta like lift it up above that lip, so I can get that bottom 1/8 of an inch. I don't know how many of you are painting on easels. How many of you guys are painting on easels? Yelena, you gave up on your easel, huh? No, you were painting on it last week. Sarah's painting on an easel. Emily, you painting on the easel? You painting on your lap?
I have an easel, and I looked for it for about 2 hours, and so I'm painting like half on my desk and half on my lap. I'm just like sitting on the floor.
Okay.
But I'm super comfy.
Okay,
Yeah.
as long as you're comfortable. That's probably the most important part, as long as you're comfortable.
The only problem that I've ever had is when I have bigger canvases, if they're not on an easel, then my perspective gets a little wonky sometimes.
Right, sure.
But I think in this case, it would actually be working for me. So, yeah.
Yeah, we want it to be whimsical and slightly out of proportion. We want Santa to look a little lopsided and weird. I mean, I haven't really looked at mine straight on as apart from looking at the Zoom video. So I'm going to be surprised when I turn this thing around and look at it myself. But if you really can't find your easel, I happen to know somebody that has a whole lot of them that aren't being used. They're all sitting in the corner over there. So let me know if you need one. Drop one off for you or something. So it seems counterintuitive filling it in with blue instead of white because snow is very white. especially when you do this first layer, because we don't have like the shadow color next to it, then it just looks a little weird, a little awkward. But it will look more natural once we put everything all together. If you wanted to add a little bit more white, if you feel like that the lightness, that it doesn't look enough like snow in yours, then maybe your blue got too dark, which is possible. You could add a little bit of white in there to lighten it up. Because I do want the ground to be just a shade lighter than the sky. And you can see that's what's coming across right now in my artwork, that this is definitely a little bit slighter, darker blue in the sky than I have on the foreground here. So if it's a little too dark, add a little white. I like to add a little bit of water to mine too, to, again, help that fluidity, to help it get onto the canvas. Just so dry. Everything just feels like a dry brush after 3 strokes. Next thing you know, you got no more paint.
Dan, I wonder if that's why I don't have any issues with the artist loft. Because I haven't been experiencing the dry issues.
Yeah, it dries a little slower. You know, and I'm gonna have to try it now that you said that it's not so bad.
Watch, you're going to try and you're absolutely going to hate it. And you're going to come back next time and be like, Sarah, why'd you make me do that?
What the hell were you talking
I
about?
hold no responsibility.
You know, I've painted entire compositions with like Craft Smart paint before, so and now I made a mess. So, you know, when this happens, guys, I say this is why I got another palette, you know, because like my blue touched my dirty pile over here, so now I got this weird, awkward, dirty blue. Not to say that I can't use it, maybe like to shadow like the edges a little bit more, or inside that shadow I could use a darker blue. But when I go back to this light blue for the snow over here, I'm going to get a fresh palette and clean off my brush, because it's so easy to destroy a nice highly chromatic color, especially when you got that color perfect, or what you think is just the right color, and then you accidentally touch another color to it. I mean, really, just be patient, rinse your brush off, get it nice and clean, and then get that color back that you wanted, or get a new palette, buy some cheap plates, some cheap paper plates, and use as many of those as you want to while you're painting. It really comes in handy to having lots of extra surfaces to mix your colors on. I feel anyway. I'm sure there's some people out there that can easily use one of these little small palettes for a whole composition, but I can't do it. I need room, especially when we're painting fast, at least sort of fast, like in these classes. So, all right, so I just have a little bit more of that blue to fill in. I got a little bit over here on the right-hand side of the house. And you can see I'm not really concentrating on making it perfect just yet. That's going to be coming at the final step when I'm trying to add those little final touches, final shadows. Right now I'm working on covering the white spots. You know, I don't really want a lot of canvas showing. And that's essentially with every painting. That's kind of like the first goal of the painting is to cover the white. Don't worry about shading. Don't worry about color and contrast and composition. And first, get some paint on the canvas first. And then worry about all that other stuff later. Once you get that first layer down, it's easier to go back and add those shadows and add those colors and gradients that you need. You see that blue dry completely over there already. Wowzers. I'm going to switch back to this mode. You don't need to see my beautiful face, right? Let's switch back. And today I'm remembering to not keep myself in thumbnail view. That's why I have my other laptop over here, so I can see all you guys. I can see you guys over here. But I'm recording in full screen view. Those of you who looked at the recording from last week will realize that I had an oopsie, that I recorded the whole thing while I was in tiny little thumbnail view. It just stinks. But it's better than nothing, and at least you can hear me clearly the whole time, right? But this recording is going to be 1,000 times better, because they'll actually be full screen. It'll be fantastic. So I'm not completely thrilled with where I'm at right now. I'm going to put a couple more brush strokes. Just a couple more brush strokes, kind of bring it all together. But I did promise you a break, so we're going to take a break in just a minute. I feel like I didn't get enough paint on the canvas over here. Over here looks a little wishy-washy, so I'm just adding a little extra paint, kind of blending that in. trying to mix that same color that I had before, which is a little phthalo blue and a little white. And a little bit of water goes a long way, especially if your paints are starting to dry on your canvas. And a little bit of water helps out a whole bunch, blending colors back together. Trying to dodge Santa's legs, trying to dodge Santa's body over here. I want to do a few more back and forth strokes, kind of smooth everything out. Looks a little blocky on mine right now. So I'm just gonna go a few more back and forth, which I said at the beginning of when I first started instructing to go left to right. But I did not follow my own instructions like a true artist. So no, I need to go back and do some smoothing out. Left to right. Smooth out some of these hard, blocky strokes that I have there. So I'm not 100% thrilled with it, but it is not done. It is far from done. We still have about at least about 45 minutes worth of work to do. So already we're falling behind schedule, and I apologize to you for that. Looks like we're going to be ending probably about 9:15, just based on how fast we got started and how far we are already. Hopefully that's cool with you guys. If not, again, I'm going to be recording it so you can watch the recording, or I will stay on late. I did last week. We think we stayed on till like 9:45 last week to wrap it up. But yeah, I'm going to take a pause right now. I'm actually going to mute myself. I'm be gone for just a second. Feel free to keep painting, catch up if you're a little behind. Or, but I do recommend a break. Just your hands need a break, because if you keep painting for another 45 minutes after this, you're going to be exhausted and you're going to want to stop. So take a break, take a breather, get something to drink, and we'll be back in about at 8:30 on the dot. Okay? See you in a little bit. Don't forget to change your water during the break too. It's one of the essential parts. Change your water, get some clean water.
Yeah, Emily, you better take those pictures.
It's really good for me to remember that sometimes it doesn't look anything like it is going to when it's finished. Like,
That's true.
Just keep painting.
I will say, literally, the gnomes from last week, they looked absolutely horrendous until I finally put some of the like definition and shadowing in their beards and on their hats.
Right.
Otherwise, I was like, what am I missing? This looks so bad.
What is happening, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out where all this goes. But we're gonna just fake it till we make it, right?
Right.
I forgot where he put all the yellow. I was half paying attention, half doing trees.
So the yellow
From
went around the window and then on top of bushes, but I don't know exactly where they're supposed to be, so I kind of guessed.
Yeah. I can't tell like what's next to the left of the house, if that's supposed to be bushes or if that's supposed to be like logs.
Yeah, I'm thinking kind of bushes, but
I think it's
Let's get some yellow. Why not?
yeah.
I'm so far ahead of you guys. I mean, come on.
Also, my like darkest paint color here looks very green.
Mine looks green too until I get far away, and then it looks blacker.
Okay. So I don't know, like, does it need another coat, or because I don't mind the trees kind of being that, and we're gonna highlight those as well, but like my path is super fucking green.
add some brown.
Oh.
I did, like it's created with blue and brown, but I guess I need more.
So what's that? Whose path is green? What?
Nothing.
What? Nothing? You're like, nothing? No, I didn't say anything.
Nothing going on.
Add more blue to it. Why is your blue and your brown making green? That, I know you asked me what kind of brown I should buy, but what the hell kind of brown did you buy?
This is burnt umber.
Weird. Why is it looking green?
You want it?
You can,
I don't know.
you can add some red to it because red would be the complementary color to green. So if it
Red
is looking too
looking
green and you want it to look darker, throw
Yeah.
the complement in there.
Okay.
I should have said, other than a paper towel and cups to clean your brushes in, you also need a color wheel. Everybody should have a color wheel in their right hand.
Right. I mean, like, I do know that red is going to be like the opposite color, but I didn't know if that's something, I don't know. I still don't know color theory.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah,
is
we're gonna
this
have a lot. We're
supposed-
gonna have. I'll teach you lots of stuff, Emily. Just keep doing
Well, like,
classes
is
with
this
me.
supposed to be green?
You know, and you could have the similar problem to what I was saying earlier, where your pile is starting to get too big, and it's hard to start tinting it in another direction once it starts going too green. You know, and you're trying to change it with just little smidgens of red, and it's still
Yeah.
green. And it's, you know, so it's almost better to like leave that pile on the side, start a new little dollop.
Do a fresh one. Yeah.
Use just a little of that pile with some blue and some red. Or I guess you guys are all really still busy. Boy, oh boy, some people took a break. I should have said it's mandatory. Mandatory break. Come on, guys. No, it's all good. If you want to paint all the way through it, you've got the gumption. Go for it. You do need clean water, though. I mean, come on.
That's a good point. I'll go get water.
Clean water.
All right.
Oops. All right. So just a plan of attack here. Next, we're gonna do our house. We're gonna do our horizontal wooden beams on our house with our dark. Hopefully, we can make that color again. I told you we're gonna make that color a lot. I think I overheard something about we don't know if they look like bushes or logs or something on that side either. The next step, we're gonna make them look more like bushes and less like whatever neutral objects that don't look like anything.
So Kieran's tablet died. Can you let her back in?
Whose tablet? What?
Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't realize. Yeah, sure. Here we go.
Cool.
Thank you for letting me know.
Yep.
All right, so the next step, we're doing the horizontal beams in the house, and then after that, I'm just reviewing my steps real quick so I can clue you guys in. After we do the horizontal beams in the house, we're doing the first layer of red on Santa. And, man, and then after that, pretty much everything is filled in, and then we just need to put the details. So the details that we have to do is the highlights in the trees, the finishing touches on the smoke, the finishing touches on the house, and a little bit of red, dark red shading on Santa. So the end of it's going to go a lot faster than the beginning of it. The beginning was a lot of covering canvas. The first half of a painting lesson is always just getting the paint on the canvas. The second half is, I think, more fun because it starts looking like the finished product, and you feel that sense of fulfillment and enjoyment as you reach completion. Stephanie, have I painted with you before? You have a familiar face.
I think I did with Sarah before.
Yeah.
I
okay.
think she did the Mario Party one.
Yeah.
The Mario.
Which
Yes. That was
is
one of my
right
favorite
there.
parties. Thank you for having
Yeah.
that party. Actually, it was Diane that had hosted that. There it is back there.
Yeah. And then there's my gnomes.
Oh, we're going to fill up that wall.
Well, that wall's actually being taken down. We're moving in a couple weeks.
Oh, are you really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
cool.
we'll be moving, and once COVID is over, I'll have a basement for you to come do a private party.
Oh,
Yeah.
congrats, newlyweds. That's such a cool big step in life. Love it. Love it. Okay, you guys are all still busy painting. I don't know what you're painting, but I'm going to go on to the next step. You're probably getting ahead of me now. Don't get ahead of me now.
Yeah.
I said this step before, but I didn't get to it because I misspoke. It was right before we started painting that highlight in our window, and when I took out this half-size flat brush, and this is about the width of a beam in my house, you'll notice. So hopefully yours is about the width of a beam in your house. If not, your beams are going to be a little bit wider or a little bit narrower, because it'll be easier just to do it on one nice smooth stroke going across and not going back and messing with it. So I'm going to show you how I do it. And in this step, honestly, we are going to use a little bit of water, especially as we finish up our house. We're going to add a little bit of wash to this paint. But to start off, we're going to make our darkest dark. I'm going to take a step back so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to make my darkest dark again. I'm going to use my blue and my red. You probably found the best combination by now. Emily's still struggling to find the best combination, but you're probably getting there. You're probably getting to the sense like, oh, I know that adding too much of that color is making it lean too far towards one hue and not neutral enough in the middle. So we really want to try to get neutral. The way I look at it is if I'm looking at my pile of dark and I could still see some hue in there, I'm going to try to push it the other way. So I'm looking at my pile right now and I can still see blue in there. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit more red until I really can't detect that blue anymore. And if I add a little too much red, I will notice optically that it ends up being a little warmer, a little purpler. And if I work it back to blue and it ends up being a little too blue, then I'll just keep working back and forth until I end up like right smack dab in the middle, which is where I'm at now. So where you can't get any darker. This is the maximum possible dark that you can make with your colors. Then I'm just adding the tiniest smidgen of water to it, just to water it down. But you can see, as I make that stroke across my palette, that what happens there is it kind of almost becomes translucent, right? And you can see through it. This is a good sign. This is going to increase the fluidity of it and make it so that I can just do one brush stroke evenly going all the way across to make it look like a beam. Now, I remember I want to preserve that white on the top. So I am just going to make a little line because I don't want to go over that line, right? That's where I want my white to be. I'm going to do the same thing on this house over here, or on the west wing, the west wing of Santa's little cottage, just so we can preserve that white, so we don't accidentally go over that white. I'm going to do the same thing on where my bushes, where I want the white on my bushes to go. That I'm not gonna bring black on that part, on the topmost part of that bush.
Can you zoom in?
Oh, absolutely. Where I want that white to go, I'm gonna try to preserve that area. And this is kind of a natural technique to me because I am my degree, my painting degree is actually in watercolor. So it's natural for me to try to preserve my whites because in watercolor you have to leave your whites. There's no going back. There's no erasing watercolors at all. As soon as you put a color onto that paper, it immediately soaks in, and there's no, like we have that forgiveness of being able to go back with a wet paper towel and wipe it off right away. You cannot do that in watercolor. So I always use that technique when I'm watercoloring, where I'm preserving those white spots. So I'm preserving the topmost white spot on these bushes on the left-hand side. I'm preserving the topmost white spot on this bush in the middle. Just using my little brush. And then I'm going to go ahead and do those beams going across my house. I'm just building up my confidence until I get there. Getting used to my little half-size brush. Putting in my little bushes on the side over here. Trying to preserve my whites. there's the bottom of that bush. All right, I think I am ready to do my beams. So here goes my first beam, and I'm just using a horizontal stroke going all the way across, trying to keep it level and trying to keep it straight. That's really what I'm concentrating on, trying to keep my brush flat and level and straight. Trying to do it in one stroke if at all possible. It's kind of tough to do the angled part, but again, and then I'm going to try to leave a little bit of gap between each one. So this next stroke is going to come bumping up right next to that previous one, but just a little gap in between. Boy, this is really difficult to do when you're standing on the side of your canvas and not in front of your canvas. Let me tell you, you guys have an extreme advantage over me right now, because this is tough. Boy, oh boy. But I like a good challenge. So I'm leaving that little gap between each beam. It doesn't have to be a perfect gap. I mean, you can see in this that it's kind of wiggly and it kind of disappears and reappears as I'm making my house. And that's okay. I'm going to leave it like that because I'm going to put another little wash coat on top, like I was saying, a wash to create this effect. I'm going to show you my finished product here. So I left all those little gaps, and you can hardly see those little gaps. I'm actually going to bring it a little closer so you can see what's going on there. So those little gaps, those little spots between the panels is what I preserved there with white, but then I went back over with another wash towards the very end and left a little highlight here in yellow. So that's what we're trying to achieve here. So just keep in mind, that's the end result that we're looking for. So those little white gaps, as stark as they look right now, they're going to look really cool when we put that next layer of dark on top of here. So there we go. This is really tough from this angle. But if you're using a nice pointed flat brush, it shouldn't be too hard. If you feel like the brush is not coming to a point, then that means one of two things. That means either you got a bad brush that's not coming to a good point. It's either got bad bristles, it's not made with good bristles, or it's too old, or two, it's overloaded with paint. You might have too much paint on there, in which case you got to squeeze that paint out onto your paper towel or squeeze it out with your fingers even and get those bristles back to a tip. I call it sharpening my brush. But when your brush gets too much paint on there, it gets too thick and you can't really make an accurate brush stroke with it anymore. So make sure you got a sharpened brush when you're painting. So I'm continuing on. I just loaded my brush up again so I can make a few more of these beams without having to reload, hopefully. I'm going to do a couple of these. These ones are going to be easier because they're not going to have the angled roof to get in my way. So I'm going to throw these on there real quick. Once you get the hang of it, it ends up working a little easier. These ones are getting a little too light. But you can see how that starts making wood panels just from going solid strokes across. And this one's hitting weird on the bottom of my window, so I'm going to have like a window pane or something right here. Just because of where it landed. So just straight across, left to right, right to left, whatever you're most comfortable with. And I gotta be real careful right here because here's another bush. So I gotta like outline where the top of that bush is so I don't accidentally go over it. So I'm gonna go right to left over here. I'm gonna try to dodge that bush. If I gotta take out my little detailed brush, I mean, if you gotta do that, that's what you gotta do. But I think I can manage with this flat one here. Hey, I think that's coming out better than the first time I did it. Cool, I like when that happens. So one thing that if I'm gonna be critical of my first painting that I don't really like is how much glare, how much white I left over here in the road. So I'm gonna come back in here and make just some little objects here with my light blue in just a second, just so it's not so stark white when I'm all the way done. Before I do that, while I still have my darkest dark, I'm gonna put that little cross beam there that to go across the window panes. I'm also outlining the whole window. This is really simple to do with just the edge of your brush. Again, if you got a nice sharpened brush, you can really just touch that brush to the canvas to make a nice straight line, as opposed to actually drawing your line manually to just use that edge of your brush, kind of dab, almost like stamp on the line. Especially if you've got a nice straight flat brush. Hopefully you guys all have a flat brush at your disposal. I just stuck my pinky in my paint. because that flat brush could be a good alternative to using a pointed brush. And it's much easier to stamp on this straight crisscross line than it is to brush it on. I don't know about you, but I don't have the steadiest hand. My hand only becomes steady when I rest my hand on the surface of the canvas. But other than that, my hand is kind of a shaky hand. I can't do a nice straight line real easily. Try my hardest. Yeah, see, stamping it's way easier. I just end up going crooked. So I'm gonna stamp that middle beam in there. Does that look right? It's a little off center. Well, mine's about to get a little bit wider then. There we go. And the window ledges, the window pane can be a little thicker than the crisscross in the middle too. I like how that turned out. I'm gonna attempt to do the same thing with my west wing on this little cabin.
Dan,
Yeah, what's up?
I can't, I don't know if I missed something. Did you paint the window yellow inside?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, that was right just before we started painting the ground earlier. However, at this point, I don't think it's entirely necessary. I mean, in fact, you can't really even discern it in my video here. You can't even tell that I got even yellow in there. It looks just plain white. So I think you can get away with it still being white if you forgot that step.
No, I can still do it.
Yeah? You're going to squeeze it in there? Okay. I'm sorry about that.
No, I must have missed that.
Oh, it means I'm going too fast. I'm just trying to cram this all into the little 2.5 hour window that we have here. It's hard to make a really nice composition in 2.5 hours. You really gotta be on the ball and painting almost the entire time, really. I find I did those 2 starry nights actually last night, and it took 3.5 hours to do the 2 paintings. So, and I don't think they came out very good. I think I could have put a little more time into them. But again, you know, that's part of the benefit of the online paint parties, that we can all go back and watch that video and work a little bit more and take our time, put in a couple final touches and final steps. Because that's really what makes a good painting is just the infinite number of final steps. Because anybody can get to the point where there's paint on canvas, right? But it's all about those little touch-ups, those little details that make the composition look complete. I think anyway. I could be wrong. Oh, my chimney. I almost forgot about my chimney. Don't forget your chimney, guys. So this white on the house, the snow, looks a little stark white, but we are going to go over it with a similar color to our snow down below in the foreground. Because it definitely looks way too bright right now. And the top of the chimney, the same color? Or has it got some snow on top too? Does snow melt on top of a chimney? I don't know. What do you guys think? Should there be snow on top of the chimney?
Yeah.
Yes? No?
Yep.
Yep? Okay, I'm going to leave a little bit of white there for the snow on top of the chimney then. So I'm going to let that dry. While that's drying, I'm going to paint Santa. How's your guys' houses looking? Are they looking similar to mine? Do they look at least kind of like wood cabins a little bit? Maybe possibly. Let me see what you got. Show me what you got, if you can. If it's not possible, I understand.
You like my house? Does it look
There we go. Oh, gosh. Ooh, I really like how that's turning out. Oh, my gosh, that's cool. That is going to be good.
It's gonna be another late night.
You're going to be, I was going to say, you're going to be paying the 1:30 in the morning again. All right, cool, guys. I'm gonna keep. Whoa, Pam, that is fantastic. Nice job.
Thank you.
Good work. Good work. I like how Nancy looks like she's just painting on nothing because the way the background is. It looks like she's just painting in space. The camera's totally hiding your composition on you. Oh, yeah. All right, so first coat of Santa. Who's ready for the first coat of Santa? Nobody, right? Oh, somebody is. All right, Nancy, cool. Anybody else ready for the first coat of Santa? You need another minute, 2 minutes? How about you hold up how many more minutes you need with your fingers? How many more minutes do you need? 2, 1, 3, 4, 5? 2. How many more minutes do you need? 2?
I need more hands.
2. You need more hands. Sarah's falling behind already. What do you got? Teeny tiny brushes, Sarah? What's your problem over there? She's using like these micro brushes that she does her eyebrows with.
Yep. I actually, every single pixel is done individually.
I do it by dots, yeah.
Pointillism.
You're actually cross-stitching yours, right? So all the paints on my palette are essentially dry now. So again, that spritzer bottle with the water in it is maybe an invaluable tool. I think I might add that to my recommended supplies list if I haven't yet, because it is almost essential. Oh, I noticed I missed Santa's footprints too. I'm gonna go back in there at the end and add those in there. This Santa, every time I paint it, my Santa's getting fatter and fatter. This Santa's huge in this one. My goodness. Santa, lay off the cookies.
It's 2020. He can do what he wants.
Right, he's got the COVID, the extra COVID pounds.
COVID weight.
Just be rolling down the chimneys. I like it. It looks halfway decent so far. It's a little bit past that awkward point. At least we can see that there's a house there and there's a person standing there. It looks like he's dressed all in white, but it almost looks like it's completely painted now at this point. So let's get a coat of red on that Santa, shall we? I am using straight red from the tube. I got fire engine red, but unfortunately, here's what the red looks like on my palette right now. So guess who's starting another palette? No, I'm gonna go back to one of these that I half used earlier. This one's only got one color in the middle. I'm gonna use this one here. So straight red, I'm gonna use just a smidgen, as I've been doing with these few previous steps. I'm using a smidgen of water just to increase the viscosity. It is gonna lower the opacity of the paint just a little bit, just a tiny bit. If you were with me last week, not quite as much as we lowered the opacity on the 57 Chevy that we painted. We had a really nice light red for that. This one I just want to lower. I just want to add just a little bit of water just to make the paints a little bit more fluid. So it's not going to be quite as thick red as it's straight from the tube. Just a tiny bit watered down. So I just had like some water on my brush while I was mixing this red up. And that's going to be my first coat of red on Santa. And I'm just going to slap that in there rather quickly. But by having a little bit of water in there, it kind of creates some natural variation in tone in the red without having to mix extra colors in with it. Again, a little watercolor technique. A little watercolor technique can go a long way. I'm going to pop back into my close-up camera here so you can see what I'm doing. And yeah, so there's kind of this natural variation happening. Oh, see, now this camera is terrible with the reds. This is absolutely terrible with the reds. It does my blues accurately, but that red is not. I don't know what I'm going to do about this. Logitech needs to start making a good camera. Anybody know anybody that works for Logitech? Gosh darn it. Man, they need to make a better camera. So the red is a little more accurate. It's a little darker in this one, but it's a little more accurate in this camera. So that's what my red looks like. But I'm going to do close-up anyway so you can see what I'm doing. But note that that red is not accurate. It looks like fluorescent red. It looks like neon. So I'm throwing that first coat. I'm dodging those white areas that I said, the white of his collar, the white of his, the bottom of his coat, the white of his glove, the white of the poof of the hat. But I put a nice coat of red over the entire fat man here. Jolly old fat man. I am picking up a tremendous amount of pencil from my, again, I said a little benefit of using a Sharpie marker is that you're not going to pick any of that up while you're painting. But as I'm painting, I notice my red is getting like subdued, grayed down quite a bit. So every once in a while, you might have to rinse off your brush if your red is getting too gray for your pencil lines. Hopefully it's not doing that too much to you. I think I used too soft of a pencil. Where's the pencil I used? Where are you? Where's the culprit? It's around here somewhere. There it is. And it's a 2B. But, you know, the harder the lead you use, if you had an H pencil on hand or a 3H perhaps, it wouldn't transfer as much graphite to the surface of the canvas as any of the B pencils, the 2B. I mean, if you used an 8B pencil, you just have graphite all over the place. It'd be dirtying all your colors up. But it doesn't bother me too much that it subdues the red. You can't really tell on the video. But it kind of adds a little bit of more natural tone to the red. Not so highly chromatic. It's dulled down a little bit. And then I turned down. I just chuckled because I turn around and look at the camera view, and it's that fluorescent crazy color. Oh my gosh, that is not the color I'm painting at all, guys. I'm gonna switch back to this camera, the other camera, so you can see the actual color that I'm painting. I'm gonna bring it a little closer so you can see. So there's a little more accurate of the color that I'm making. And you can see how watering it down ever so slightly creates that natural variation. It almost makes it look like there's wrinkles in the bag, or wrinkles in his coat the way I put it on there. So that's much truer to the color that is in real life here in my house. So just a little more to fill in here, a little bit on his chubby arm, the side. Leave a little white gap there for his collar, and then I need a layer on his hat. So just a little layer going down here. And the hat, the white of the hat kind of blends in with the white of the collar. If yours looks more like the white of the hat and not the white of the collar, and that's the way you meant it to be. I left a little gap there. I want the hat to go down a little lower, so I'm going to fill that in with a little bit of black in just a second. Or not black, but my darkest dark. A little top of this bag here needs a little bit of red. So as it starts to dry, and I can show you a little sample of it right now, you'll see that I can lay another, I'm going to switch cameras, that once this red dries, I can use almost that same red color and do another layer on top, and you can see how that kind of starts creating a shadow. Even though it's the exact same color red, you can see it. The camera's picking it up a little bit. If you take note to that even though it's the exact same color red, the first red I used was slightly watered down, ever so slightly, so it created that natural variation. Then I can almost use that regular red, straight red from the tube, to create that shadow. So that's what I'm gonna do. Since my red is drying already, I'm gonna create just a little bit darker red on the sides of his body, underneath the bag here, just to kind of create a little bit of a shadow. The bottom side of his hat, or the creases on his hat. And then his pants are gonna be quite a bit darker red than his coat, because they're kind of getting shadowed by his coat. So we're gonna do definitely a whole nother layer of red on those pants.
My Santa doesn't have a thigh gap, so he's getting really juicy, but I'm kind of okay with it.
He's getting juicy. Juicy Santa. I like it.
Yep.
Emily, I don't even know what to say to that.
You know,
Well, just wait.
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing.
Just-
You know, my one in the other painting, the one leg was a little higher than the other, so it actually looked like he was walking. And this one that I'm making today, it looks like he stopped walking. It looks like he kind of just gave up. He's just standing there, like, I'm not gonna make it. This is it for me.
Aw.
So, I'm sure your non-thigh gap Santa has its own personality, though.
He's gonna make it up the hill.
Yeah, you know, it's going to be an uphill battle for him. It's, you know, every painting is going to have a little story behind it, I think. It's quite the narrative we're painting. So I'm bringing out my little tiny detail brush. This is not really a step of the canvas. This is just me touching up my little mistakes. I'm putting in a little bit of that darkest dark by the top of the hat. I made his hat a little bit smaller than I drew it. I didn't want to pop it up so much. I feel like it's the walk home. The hat should be, you know, droopy, kind of down, not so perky. So I'm going to fill this in right over here. And of course, it's not the exact same color. Of course not. It's close, but no cigar. So I'm going to try to make it blend in a little bit. I'm going to just add a little bit extra here, so it kind of matches the rest of the stuff that's going on, because that's not quite the same color. That's happened. That's, you know, that happens in art. It's unpredictable. And that's why art makes us better critical thinkers, helps us problem solve at work, because we got to overcome these obstacles when we're painting. When we make those happy little accidents, how we're going to work those into our painting and make it work, make it seem purposeful. I meant to do that. So I'm just adding a little bit. I'm noticing that my tree line just dipped below my bag here, so I'm just adding a little bit of dark below my bag. There's just a little white gap there. I'm just touching up just a little bit while you guys are finishing up your Santas, or maybe you're touching up too, I don't know. My darkest darks don't match now. I have to throw a little bit more of that up there. Cool, cool. Awesome. Awesome. How you guys doing? Good? Bad? Ugly? I don't know.
All the above.
All the above? Well, we got a couple of final steps. So now we're at that point where we've pretty much got paint all the way everywhere on canvas. Now it's time for the touch-ups. Now it's time to pop those highlights, find those darks, smoothing things out, touch up gradients, all that fun stuff. And everybody's canvas really looks different at this point too. I'm sure of it. If I was walking around the room, no two of yours would look the same, especially now that we have all different brands of paint. So you probably, more than likely, will have different things to touch up at the last step of the process than I do. But I'm going to walk through as well as I could some of the obstacles that you might come across as you're doing these finishing touches. So the next step, I think, is the most fun step, in my opinion. Let me see where I'm at here. There. Just trying to stay on track. Last class I didn't stay on track as good, and I was skipping around steps and I regretted it. So I'm just re-looking at my steps that I took. I took photographs as I was painting my example painting, so I kind of know what's going to come next. Okay, yes, it is the fun part. I like this part a lot. So we're to make a nice light yellow. If you still have on your plate from before, it's probably dry. But that was a really easy color to make, so no harm in making that one again. That was just mostly white with a little tiny bit of yellow in it. Oh, this is so much fun. You can almost use any brush for this step even. I'm going to use my pointed brush. There you are. Oh, I haven't used it yet. I'm finally going to bust out my pointed brush for this step, this guy right here. And I'm going to start popping in some of these yellow, bright yellow highlights. And I'm going to pan back for just a second. Hey, babe. Hey, honey. Can you give me some fresh water, please? Please. Thank you. Always have an assistant when you're painting. Helps out so much. All right, guys. So this yellow, this bright yellow that I said you should make. Very bright yellow, mostly white, a little bit of tiny touch of yellow. And we're going to dirty this color down a little bit too. So what we got to dirty it down with? I don't want to turn it green. That's the last thing I want to do. So I don't want to really add blue to it. I might add a touch of brown, or if you have some of that darkest dark still lying around, that's what I'm touching over. You can't even see my palette over here. You can't even see what I'm doing. I got my other palette with my darkest dark over here, and I just add a little bit of that to my brush, and I'm adding just a little of that to my bright yellow. So it's just subduing it ever so slightly. why does it look so bright? Come on, camera. Stop that. Oh, man. Okay, so there's the color I got. Man, oh, man, the camera does not like to pick up on this color for some reason. So there's the color I got. It's like a subdued bright yellow. So not as bright as the yellow that we used in the windows, but that's what I started with. So I started with that bright yellow that we used in the windows, and then I added a little bit, just a little touch at a time of our darkest dark color, just to subdue it a little bit, just to make it a little more beigey. And I'm going to use that color too. And once my brush is fully loaded, hope I got a lot of it on there. I'm going to use this brush in a way that you probably have never seen before. This pointed brush right here, I am going to drag it sideways to make those highlights on my trees. So to demonstrate, I'm just going to lay my brush here flat, and I'm just going to drag it down like that. And that is how I'm creating the highlights of my trees. So I'm not using this brush in a very natural way whatsoever. I am gobbing up paint on there. I'm loading it like I normally would. But then when I paint it on there, again, I am just like dragging the side of the brush down. If you had a palette knife, anybody have a palette knife?
Yes.
Ooh, if you got a palette knife, this would be a great step. You know, a lot of those stuffies like, oh, what are you, who's got one of those? But believe it or not, a lot of like those cheap art kits, like the little $10 sets, they'll have like 5 brushes and a palette knife that you'll never use.
The palettes that I got, it was $2 at Michael's, and it came with these 3.
There you go. Okay, so everybody
whatchamacallits.
borrow one from Sarah. She's got
I got 3 of them, but I've already gone through 2 palettes, so.
So with a palette knife, you can essentially do the same thing that I'm doing with the brush, is where you get a little bit of paint on the side of the palette knife and then drag that palette knife down. Whoa, my painting just moved. Hello. Good thing that wasn't disastrous. Oh, that was almost a really happy accident. So I am just dragging that down my tree, kind of in the same direction that I painted my tree when I first threw it on the surface. And that's going to be how I create these highlights on my trees. And they don't all need highlights.
Can you zoom in, Dan?
Yeah, totally. So I don't have a palette knife handy, but this is a good way to mimic the same look of a palette knife without having one. So I'm using my my pointed brush, and I'm not using the point of the brush while I'm painting. I'm using the side of the brush, so it creates that dragging look to it as I pull it across the surface of my canvas. And you can still kind of make the semblance of some of the branches too with that same technique. I got too much on my brush. If you got too much on your brush, wipe it off just a smidgen. Otherwise, it's not going to have that look. Because it is like dry brushing combined with dragging your brush. And if they're inconsistent, that's okay too. Because the snow on the tops of the trees should be inconsistent as well. All right, so there's my couple of topped trees. I don't like the way that one looks right there on camera. They look better in real life. I'm gonna do a couple more strokes. I'm gonna stand in front of this for a second so I can see what I'm doing. That is really hard to do on an angle. There you go. And now I'm gonna use that same color while I still have it, that weird, awkward, off yellow. And as my brush is drying, as I'm making those, and I feel like I got that dry brush feel to my brush, I'm gonna use that dry brush with that weird, icky yellow color. I'm gonna mix some of that in the highlight of my smoke over here, where the sun is hitting it. So remember, it's coming from the east, and it's shining this way, so the left-hand side of our smoke can have a little bit of sunlight, a little bit of highlight hitting it from the sunrise. Just a little bit of color. Try not to overdo it. It's easy to overdo it. I'm gonna use my finger to blend it in. I don't recommend that, especially if you got bad cuticles. It's a good way to get paint inside your bloodstream. So yeah, don't use your finger to blend, but you could use your finger to blend. And that doesn't look so bad. It's starting to look like smoke a little bit, especially with that weird color in it. That weird off yellow. Cool. You know, I'm gonna accentuate, because my yellow was so weak that first time around when I did the yellow of the window. And again, this might not apply to everybody, but in my case, I'm looking at my my building, my window, and I feel like it just needs to be glowing more. So what I did just now is I added a whole bunch of water to that same color, that weird off yellow. Ooh, it looks really nice on this camera, actually. That's really the color we're going for. So I just added my darkest dark to that yellowish, that bright yellow color, and watered it down just considerably, quite a bit. And I'm using that watered down just to kind of create a glow around my window here. I don't feel like it was glowing enough. So I'm adding just this little bit of glow around here. Do I need that bright yellow for anything else? I don't think so. That looks just about right. How'd that come out for you guys? Did that work? Did that stuff work out for you? That dragging your brush across the trees?
No.
No. Remember, it came with a wet paper towel if it didn't work out. You can always wipe it back off. Like over here, like this one looks a little too dark, but now I waited too long to wipe that back off, so I can't erase back into it. But if I would have caught it immediately, I could have used my wet paper towel, and I can still maybe get a little bit off. And if it starts to dry,
It totally changes the whole look of the trees.
it really does. It really adds some depth, some life to them. They really kind of look dead before you throw that stuff on there. So, a couple little final steps here, and then I'm going to ask you guys for some input of where your trouble spots are in your painting, so we can help you out with that. So I'm going to take my red, I'm just going to do a few of those darkest darks on my Santa Claus, just give him a little bit more roundness. I can't believe how big he got in mine. I can't wait to see Emily's, how big his got too. How big hers got, on how big his body got on hers. So I'm mixing a little bit of my darkest dark. If you don't have any more darkest dark, you can always just throw a little bit of brown in your red. That's a real quick way to make a nice dark red. Just throw a little bit of brown in there. Alternatively, I've got that phthalo blue, a blue-green. If you touch your blue-green, just a tiny touch and mix it with your red, it's going to tone down that red a whole lot. So the parts that are shadowed, the bottom of his legs are going to need some of this darker red. And I'm going to try to round off his body a little bit more. So on the right-hand side, I'm going to add some shadow. Around his belt, I'm going to add some shadow. On the right-hand side of the bag, need some color here. Not too much. And then like below the flop of the hat, could use a little bit of a little tiny shadow just to show that flop happening. It really doesn't need much of that dark red to show that he is rounded. In fact, today I might have accentuated it a little too much. That's all right. It's cool. It's cool. Lots of little tiny steps, and I know I'm kind of flying through stuff fast, but again, some of the stuff you don't even have to do. Some of the stuff I only have to do. Some of the stuff you remember to do, and I totally forgot about. Like his boots over here. I totally forgot a dark on the boots. Am I the only one that forgot that? Did somebody actually remember putting some dark in the boots? No? So if you still got some darkest dark, again, that's my red mixed with my blue. And I've moved on to my tiny detail brush now. So now I got a nice pointed brush. And I find that's always kind of the case as I'm reaching the end of a composition, that my brush kind of gets smaller and smaller as I'm working down into the little details. So I got my near black here. I got my phthalo blue and my red. And I'm actually running out of them. I almost used all of the red and all of the blue that was on my palette. I hope I don't have to pour more. I like having...
And the example has a black belt too.
Ooh, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, see, sometimes I just overlook things as I'm painting. But you're right, you can put a little black belt on the fat man too. So here we go. I'm gonna put a little black on his boots here. I kind of want the one leg a little more buried into the snow and the other one showing a little bit more. So just a little touch of boots is showing. Oh yeah, and the holes in the snow. So the holes in the snow are just with a darker blue. Somewhere between the trees and that shadow, we want to color somewhere between there. and I lost mine actually. I painted over mine. I can't even see where they were. But if you remember, they were just like little weird ovals, little not imperfect ovals, I guess you can call them. Comb them up on an angle and make sure they kind of get bigger as they approach the foreground. I'm gonna make a nice dark blue for that in a second. First, I'm gonna finish these couple of black touches that I want on my Santa Claus. And we're almost done. Hopefully, or I'm almost done. Like I said, I'm gonna stay on for an extra 10, 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever you guys need to help finish up any further final tips. So I got black there, black there. Oh, I wanted some black on my house. So especially from this view, my house is like almost gone. But I'm gonna zoom back in so you can see what I'm doing, and it looks a little more accurate to what I'm doing. Yeah, there. Wow, from that other camera, you really can't see my house. It almost disappears. So a couple more final touches. I hope I don't go too fast. I'm gonna try to take my time. Is it okay if I go till 9:30, guys? Otherwise, I'm gonna have talking like Speedy Gonzalez over here and break a sweat, and then all you guys are gonna be painting way too fast and be sloppy. So we're all cool with 9:30. Awesome sauce. So instead of trying to rush through these last few steps, I'm gonna take my time here. I'm still noticing a couple things. Julie, thanks for pointing out that I didn't have that belt there. I probably wouldn't remember to do that just now. But now that I have my darkest dark, one more time with my darkest dark on my cabin. I remember I said that we were gonna do a little bit of a wash this time. So we are gonna water down our darkest dark. We're gonna get our darkest dark going, and then we're gonna add a little bit of water. And we're gonna actually kind of try to shade this thing a little bit with our watered down darkest dark. So I'm gonna start, not right in the middle, not right next to the window. I'm gonna start towards the top of this house. So I know this is gonna be a little darker underneath where this, where the awning of the roof is overhanging. So I'm gonna start by putting my darkest dark there, and the sides of the house. And you can see that it is a transparent color, so you can still see through it and see those gaps that I made, those white gaps between the boards. So I'm starting from the edge of my house and working my way inwards. And I'm not gonna come all the way inwards because I want that light to still be glowing in the middle. So I'm not gonna come all the way in with this second layer of dark. I'm gonna let that window glow quite a bit. So starting from the left edge and bringing it towards the right, starting from the right edge and bringing it towards the left, and kind of releasing my pressure of my brush stroke as I'm reaching the middle. As I approach that window, I'm releasing pressure off my brush stroke to kind of fade that out, so it kind of looks like a glow coming from the outside of the window. And I think that helps out tremendously. It really creates that warm fuzzy feeling, that warm glow coming from the window. Really just makes you want to, creates that sense of invitedness that you feel that you should be in that house. That's where you're gonna go warm up and be cozy. Sense of longing. So just try to make that glow if you can. So again, all I did was water down that darkest dark just a little bit, so it still ended up transparent, and then brought that towards the middle of my house. And I'm just gonna use straight water at the very end to kind of, because I don't like how abruptly it came to be at the end. I'm just using straight water to kind of blend that in. There we are. That's looking good. Now the west wing over here, I'm not worried as much about because there's no windows over here, so I'm just putting that second layer on this west wing here. So you can still kind of see those wood beams between, but they're essentially gone. If you wanted to add just a touch more dark underneath the overhang of the roof here, just to accentuate that's popping off a little bit. There's a little depth. Cool. It's looking good. Now it's really, those highlights, those snowy highlights on the house are really looking like a stark white contrast to everything else that's on our canvas. It is like blindingly white, almost like the snow is glowing. So we definitely need to tone that down with a very similar color that we used with, I would say, find the brightest brightest spot in your foreground in the snow. So mine's right about here, right next to my shadow right here. It ended up being like my brightest snow spot. I'm gonna try to use that same color, this sky bluish color as my snow color on my house. So these spots that I preserved white are actually gonna get that nice light blue treatment, but it's gonna still be a nice pop of light because we have that nice white color preserved underneath, that blue should still pop on top of it. So I'm gonna use my smaller brush, my pointed brush. Do I have enough blue left here to use? Just barely. Wow, that's dry. That's completely dry right there. I'm gonna pop back here so you can see what I'm doing on my palette. And believe it or not, I am still using that palette that I started with. Woohoo! Look at that. I did start a couple other palettes for this red and for room for my nice bright yellow, but essentially I used one palette the whole time. And I don't know if that's ever happened before. So congrats to me. So I'm mixing that nice bright blue, and I'm noticing on the left-hand side of my Santa, especially when I'm looking at it in the camera, that it looks a little too bright white right there to the left of my Santa. But I'm going to disregard that for the moment because we got something to fill in. We got our blue snow to fill in. So mostly white, a little bit of blue. All this blue, I'm putting the white on top of this blue. All that blue underneath there is dry. So I'm just going to touch my blue. I think I used a little bit of, oh, no, I don't remember which blue I used. I think I used phthalo blue. I'm pretty sure. That's the blue greenish looking blue. So I'm going to whiten that down. A whole bunch of white added to that. And there is the blue that I want for my snow. If you want to, you could try to add some shadow to that blue. But really, I'm just going to lay that flat color blue in to start with. And then maybe add just a smidge in a darker blue just to create a tiny bit of shadow at the bottom of the snowy mounds. So painting in all these lumps. Now it looks really weird because now I've got the one snowy area that's blue and the rest of them are white. So that really looks bizarre. But once you get them all blue, it'll all blend together. And the true white light will be coming from the house. And it'll all make sense. Remember I was saying earlier that I had too much of a highlight over here in my previous composition, so I want to put like, I don't know, just some little rocks, some pebbles, just to break up this area so it's just not stark white here. I mean, I do want some white showing through. I do want that highlight look like it's hitting the road over there, but I don't need all that. I mean, you can see in my, again, if I had one criticism of my previous painting, that this ended up way too white. In fact, there's like no paint right there, and that bugs me that I ended up with no paint on my canvas right there. So I'm making a point that I added some paint to that area on this one, and I'm going to scribble in this snow over here, snow over here. There we go. Now that looks more natural. Things are looking good, guys. How are you guys looking? See some looks of frustration. We getting frustrated? Don't be frustrated. It's Friday night. Woohoo! Friday night. Work is done for the week. I'm gonna do some more painting this weekend. I got prep my next few parties. I got stuff in January cooking and all sorts of pretty sunsets and stuff to uplift us in that coldest, dreariest month of the year, especially in January and February. We're gonna have lots of fun, pretty things to paint to kind of brighten our spirits. In fact, I think a month from now, that what we're painting today is gonna feel depressing, looking at all the snow and stuff. So I'm gonna have some really bright, kind of spring-colored sunsets. Some of them may have snow in them, but the snow is gonna be very brightly colored, pinky and pink and purples. Lots of pretty things coming up. So keep an eye on MrPaintParty.com and see if you can find another painting that piques your interest in the near future. There's gonna be lots of stuff going on there soon in 2021. I got lots of plans. There's gonna be some, I don't wanna spoil all the news, but there's going to be some name your price events for some of the people that were saying, oh, I don't even have $10 to spend. Boy, I know how that goes. I mean, this COVID is not treated anybody very nicely, except for the upper 1%. So I completely understand when people say they want to paint and they got no money. So I'm going to have a name your price event where you can actually type in how much you want to pay from $0 to whatever you feel like donating to me to keep these parties alive and well. I'm also going to have a couple of free events. Emily gave me some tips the other day that I think I might just do some free little short tutorials, like little half an hour, little 20-minute tutorials, like how to paint trees, how to make it green, just real short, quick lessons so people can pick up on some little tiny painting skills that they may not have grasped otherwise. So we got some free events, some name your price events. We got some kid-friendly events. If there's any kids in your life, I know some of you guys got some babies that are grown enough to handle acrylic paint. I recommend about 7 years older and up for my family-friendly events, just because at 7, then they start to know not to put the paint in their mouth. They keep their fingers out of the mouth, keep their brushes out of their mouth, because the last thing I need is a kid getting sick from eating paint or something weird. Okay, I'm gonna switch back to my other camera because I'm just yapping over here and you guys need to see what I'm doing. And that my nicer camera has less realistic color. My cheaper camera over here shows the color much more accurately, aside from red. That red is not spot on. But you can see where we're headed here. We're almost done. We've got the blue, we've got our smoke, we've got our Santa. I'm gonna throw those little Santa footprints in there real quick. And then what else do we have? Maybe a little darker on my shadow. Oh, the snow, the little snowflakes in the foreground. I almost totally forgot about the final step. That final step is really gonna push all the depth to the max in our painting, because then you'll have really ultimately the foreground element. So that snow is gonna be in the true foreground, and then we have multiple layers of depth behind that. Questions, comments? Is anybody getting stuck? Does anybody need help? Is anybody having any problem spots, obstacles they need to overcome? You guys are all so focused. Got some focused artists today. Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer. What's up?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if I forgot, I got a little overzealous and didn't put the snow on the house, can I add it if I just do a really thin layer?
Yes. Wait until everything is completely dry. Wait until that black is completely dry so you're not picking up any gray from underneath it. And then definitely, for sure, white should be able to cover. They usually make white actually one of the strongest colors, because they know that people are going to use white to cover things up, and they're going to use white to adjust to their canvases. So they usually make white nice and strong, nice and opaque, so it can cover just about anything. In fact, I'm going to pop my whites that are on the bottom side of my roof here. So I'll be kind of doing the same thing. Oh, look at you guys are right next to each other. Oh, I see. Hey. It looked like you were in completely separate places, especially with your virtual background. What was that?
She's at my house.
Yeah, it's nice. It's good to have a couple friends over for a painting night. Why not? We can't have 20 people, but you can have a couple of guests over for a paint night. Bring some friends, absolutely. Thank you for spreading the news, by the way. Thank you for inviting more than just yourself and telling some people. I really do appreciate those of you that brought more than one guest today. That really means a whole lot. I'm not going to start crying, but that means a whole lot to me, you guys, when you tell your friends that you had a good time and you bring another friend the next time, and they tell 2 friends and they tell 2 friends. I really appreciate that. And so make it a point to tell 2 friends after this event is over, and maybe we can see more of you guys. I'm going to throw these, I was supposed to call them hoof prints, footprints in the snow over here. I'm using just the colors I have left here. I got a little bit of blue left, a little bit of dark left. I don't have much left here. Everything is pretty much dry. But I'm going to throw a couple of footprints in here. So here's one footprint. Here's another footprint. I'm not trying to make them perfect. In fact, this is like going underneath the edge of my canvas again here. And this one you can't even see. It's not dark enough, so I gotta make this one a little darker. So just like little ovals, little oblong ovals. They're not perfect. Don't try to make them perfect. But the less perfect you make them, I think the more perfect they are, actually. They look more like footprints in the snow if they're imperfect. What else can I touch up? What else can I touch up on my painting, guys? You see anything that I can do? What looks halfway done or partly done? Give you a little pop quiz again. Anybody want to chime in to see what I could paint on more? Yeah, I got a lot of shrugs. So it looks good. I'm done. I am going to use my critical eye. Did I finish all the steps that I wanted to walk you guys through, I guess is A. Yeah, I think I did. Oh, except for those drips, the snowy drips. So I'm going to do one more layer. I'm going to make a little bit of dark down here because that's the only thing that really stands out to me. My road didn't get dark enough. And then we're going to splash, I don't know where you are in your house, if you're in a splashable zone, but we're going to spritz some white on there, some blue and some white. I might take mine off my easel and lay it flat on the table to make it a little easier for myself. So my drips land nicely and I don't get them all over the place. So other techniques, I know there's lots of little techniques to make drips and dots. Today I'm going to make a off white, so like a bluish white, maybe even throw a little bit of that dirty dark color in there so it's not stark white. You can see from my examples that neither of those examples have white snow coming down. That's just going to look awkward. It's going to look like too weird of a highlight. So I'm just going to water down that off white color that I'm making. I'm just going to flick it on there a little bit. I'm going to tap my brush. I'm going to water it down to the point where it can easily be dripped off my brush, where just a tap on my brush is going to make it fall off. I'm just going to add this little dark here while I'm thinking about it, so I don't forget. I wanted a little more dark on my road here. Looks a little too gray. Did I forget anything? Is there any steps that you know that I said that I forgot to touch base on, or another tip that you had to make something happen that you can't make happen? Just let me know. Shout out, chat. You can always hit me up afterwards too. Like if you're going to finish this tomorrow or over the weekend or something, feel free to email me and shoot me a message of the step you're stuck on or whatever you need help with. I'll make myself available for you guys and give you some extra advice if and when you need it. So yeah, feel free just to email me. I'm dan@mrpaintparty.com if you didn't already know that, or just reply to any of those emails that you got already from me. You're going to get a follow-up email from me over the weekend, probably on Sunday after YouTube processes my video. I'm going to put that video privately on this video that I'm recording right now privately on YouTube. I ask that you don't share the link with all your families and friends, but if you want to show a couple people just to pique their interest, I don't mind that so much. But that's really just for your own use. After a couple of months that it's online on YouTube, I'll pull it down and make it public for everybody to share and spread the news. But I'd like you to have that as your privilege for buying a ticket for this event. To at least have that just for you for at least a couple months. That's your lesson to go back and look at any point in time. So more finishing touches. I said I was going to put some highlights on my edges of my roof, and then I'm going to do those drips. So just bear with me in just a second. I'll put a little just white. If you want to touch your yellow, you can, but I'm doing just white. A little bit of white that I have left here. And it's going on the bottom edge of my roof here, because that's the brightest white of my painting now is that window. So I'm going to kind of reflect some of that window light onto the tops of my snowy piles here that are on my roof. So just some stark white. Hopefully that. Who asked that question earlier? If the white was going to cover on top of that black? Was it Jennifer? It was Jennifer. Jennifer, did you try it? Is it working? Yes, no, maybe. Thumbs up. Is it working? Is it covering? No, it's not covering. Oh, shoot. Well,
I'm sorry, say it again, what?
You wanted to pop those white highlights on the part that you accidentally painted over? Did you try doing it yet, or is it working or not?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, it might take more than one coat if that white doesn't cover completely on the first try. It might take more than one try, but okay. You should be able to rescue it. Anything is really rescuable. And if it's not rescuable, right, you paint it white and you use it next time. Or you paint it black and you put it in the attic. That's what my high school art teacher used to tell me. And that's going to be a new Mr. Paint Party slogan. Paint it black and put it in the attic. Nobody has to know. I'm adding just a little bit of shadow here on my whites. My whites look a little too stark on Santa. So I'm just adding just a touch of my darkest dark to white. Just to add a little bit of shadow to these whites. They look just too stark white to me. And then some of the white parts are not even painted at all. Those look a little too too unfinished to me too. So I might put a little bit of white on there after we're done. But I like how it looks, so I'm gonna start dripping some stuff on here in just a second. I'm gonna lay it flat because I'm gonna do some drips. So I'm gonna come over here. I'll flop my camera over here. And again, we're at final steps. Thanks for bearing with me during this whole class so far. We've been painting for 2.5 hours, so you can all pat yourself on the back for making it through the whole thing. We're just about done. We're just about ready to wrap it up. Again, I'll stick around and stay on. Zoom's not going to kick us off. I found out last week that Zoom's not going to boot us off. So I'm going to stay on here for as long as you want to stay on here. But I'm going to do these final steps here, which is just dripping some snow on here. If you're not ready for this step, I understand. You want to finish up. You want to finish up everything underneath the snow first. But I want to just show you how it's done. That way, when you go back and watch the recording, you know how it's done if you're going to do it later. So you pretty much just use any brush that can hold a whole lot of water and liquid. I'm going to use my pointed brush. That's because it's got a big barrel and it can hold a lot of paint and a lot of water. Not every pointed brush is like that though. So I got I'm going to try to make a snow color here, and there's just too much yellow on this palette, so I don't think I can use this one. I don't want to start another palette. No, I got like a half dirty plate here that I'm going to use. And I'm really just using a little bit of my blue and mostly white. So mostly white, a little bit of, do I have any colors still wet left over here? I'm just going to drag across the whole thing and see if I can pick up anything of the colors that I previously had. There's a little bit of blue here left. So I'm going to mix a little bit of that blue with this white. I mean, you can even use the dirty water to help tone it down a little bit too. So there's a nice sky blue that came back to me here. Now I'm watering it down considerably to the point, not to the point where you're not going to be able to see it, but to the point where it'll drip off your brush. And you can test that by dripping it off your brush and seeing how it's going to drip. We want some nice big drips and we want some nice little drips. So depending on how hard you tap, see how I'm just tapping the top of my brush? Depending on how hard you tap that brush, it's going to either make a big drip or a little drip. So that is how I'm going to do it. And I'm just going to come over here and I'm just going to start dripping. I'm going to start on the edge so I don't accidentally end up with a big drip right in the middle of my canvas. So I'm going to start on the edge a little bit. Another good technique for this would be a toothbrush. A lot of people like using toothbrushes. Now I'm trying not to flick it too hard because I don't want it to look like it was flicked on there. I want it to look like snowflakes. So I'm trying not to overdo it. Trying to do very few with each flick. But another technique for this would be to use a toothbrush. A lot of people use toothbrushes to do this, but I feel like when you use a toothbrush, it's like too fine of a spray coming off of there.
A denture brush works really well also.
You're using a toothbrush?
No, I used a denture brush when I did our wedding centerpieces, and it worked really well because it's really, really thick, tough bristles.
Really? You said a denture brush?
Yeah, I got it from the dollar store. Like you said, dollar store is your best friend.
Yeah, it really is. So yeah, if you happen to have a denture brush, then bust that out. But if not, your brushes can work. You can make it happen with a brush. And if you're really feeling like it's not flicking off your brush well, then just use the tip of your brush and dot it on there. Just use the tip and kind of just use it as a stamp. And then if you touch really, really, really lightly, you should be able to make some. See, that made a big snowflake, just that first drip, because I had a lot of paint on my brush. But that technique makes some bigger dots. And we do want some bigger dots and some smaller dots. The bigger dots are going to look like they're in the foreground. Smaller dots are going to look like they're in the background. It's really going to help create that depth and layers that we're looking for. Now, unfortunately, after I'm done with this, I'm going to have to pick up my camera to show you, because as soon as I pick up my painting, all these drips are going to fall down. But that's the nature of the beast. So I don't want to do too many. I'm going to try to bring it closer to the camera so you can at least see it. But it's not going to be on my easel. So I'm mixing some water with my white, my light blue, maybe grab a little leftover dark color so it's not so stark. And I'm just dripping some paint on there, putting some dots. Don't forget to put a couple over the top of your house. I know it's hard to put stuff on top of the parts that you already painted perfectly. But there we go. Try not to overdo it. Try not to overdo it. Try to find that spot where you're done and it doesn't look too forced. I got one dot that's just way too big. Again, if you got something that's way too big or a mistake, you could use a wet paper towel, wet, clean paper towel. And especially these drips. These drips will come right off. No problem. So that was way too big of a drip that I just pulled off of there. So I'm using some flicking. I'm using some dotting. That way I have some good variation in the size of my specks, that they're not all uniform. Make sure you get a couple on top of Santa too. Santa needs a couple specks on top of him. And then, and that's pretty much it. I mean, you can always do, like I said, you can do finishing touches all weekend if you wanted to. You can even make it look realistic. Keep going to that house until it looks like a real house. But at this point, I think I'm done with my instruction that I wanted to give you. There was one other thing I wanted to touch. Oh, I knew there was something else I wanted to touch with this nice bright white. There's a little tiny string on Santa's bag. While I have my pointed brush out, I want a little tiny string on his bag. And it's got to be, it can't be watered down, otherwise you're not going to see it. I'm just using straight white with a little bit of yellow and just a little bit of color to it. And there's my string right there. There we go. So there's the finishing touches. While you still have paint on your brush, make sure you sign your name somewhere. Use one of the colors that's on your canvas. I'm going to try to bring this closer for you guys. See? So you can see some of my specs. All my specs are coming out of different sizes because of the way I flicked them on there. Some of my I tapped pretty hard on the side of my brush to make them force them off. Some of my I hit really lightly and made little tiny flicks, little tiny dots. And then some of them I actually dabbed with the tip of my brush. Feel free to use whatever you're comfortable with. But that is it for this painting, guys. Don't forget to sign your name on it when you're all the way done. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy week to spend some time painting with me. I really enjoyed painting with you. Hopefully I'll see you guys all again. Remember, tell 2 friends and have them tell 2 friends and spread the word. That's the only way I'm gonna get this business started and off the ground and painted. So if you like painting and you want to see more, you got to tell more people so I can figure out how to make some money at it. But till then, thank you very much for painting with me. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed yourself today.
Can you do one more quick, hold it up to the screen? I wanted to take another screenshot.
That's awesome.
To make
Yeah,
sure I know how
I'd love to.
finish.
You know, I kind of want to take a screenshot of everybody holding theirs up at once, but
I can take a screenshot. I just need to get back in a gallery view. All right, give me one.
It's kind of hard. Well, it's kind of hard at the moment because the last couple drips I have on there are pretty wet and they want to drip down the canvas. So
yeah, I just wanted to get a little bit better. All right, that's good. Let me see if I can get.
It's starting to dry. I'll be able to put it vertical again in a second, but I'll hang out online with you guys for a little bit. I'm gonna stop the recording actually, and I'm gonna leave the Zoom on. So if you guys got any questions, hit me up before I hang this thing up. Okay. But I'm gonna leave this on until you guys are done. Where's the recording button? Stop recording. We're done recording. So whoever's watching this recording, thanks for watching.